This is the first part of a mini-series idea I had for the month of October. Each day, I will be talking about what could have happened if one of the villains managed to win instead of the heroes. At the end of the month, the parts will be compiled into one video, which will include the chapter titles in each part. Anyway, I'm going to do this in a slightly different way than what you'd probably expect. Instead of later threats that normally appear in the story still happening, I'm going to keep it as everything going in the villain's favor. So, for example, in the case of Emperor Pilaf winning, I'm not going to include Raditz' arrival. I just wanted to make these stories focus on the villain and how the world would be affected by their victory alone. Though, for this part, since there were some minor villains in the Emperor Pilaf saga besides Pilaf himself, I'm going to briefly talk about what if they won as well. While the major focus of this video is about Emperor Pilaf, I'm going to start with the minor villains first. With some of these scenarios, they won't always be the most accurate, since it would be a stretch for some villains to win. I knew it would be like that when writing these, so I just didn't worry about what's likely or not for some of the villains. For example, one of the villains I knew that it would be a stretch for them to win was Oolong, so I just wrote these scenarios that were a stretch for fun, instead of worrying about accuracy. For the first minor villain, I'm starting with Oolong since it is the villain Goku meets first. In terms of strength, Oolong doesn't have a chance to beat Goku, so his winning would be based on a different timeline where Grandma Palsu's grandmother didn't find the Dragon Ball, so it is still in the woods somewhere. Since it would still be in the woods, Goku and Bulma would never go to Aru Village. Without anyone there to stop him, he would take Pokawatha as his bride. If, for some reason, he didn't like her as a bride or he gets tired of her, he'd likely continue to terrorize Aru Village and kidnap more girls. If he ever got bored of the girls in Aru Village, or exhausted his options there, he might decide to terrorize other villages instead. Also, since Goku wasn't there to attack Oolong, they would have never had the idea to try and attack him back, so they would never realize that he is weak. Anyway, he would keep terrorizing different villages until he finally finds a bride he likes. Also, since he was never stopped, the myth about him being a demon would continue to spread, since he would still use his demon form. Another thing to mention is that in the manga he said he extorted money from people, though we don't know exactly how he did this, but if he ever runs low on money, he'll likely continue extorting people for more money. To begin this timeline, it would start during Goku's fight against Yamcha while they were in Diablo Desert. The easiest way for Yamcha to win would be if Bulma didn't wake up during this fight. Normally, Yamcha was about to go in for the kill when Bulma woke up, so she didn't wake up. Their fight would continue. Goku was tired at the time, since he was hungry, so his strength dropped. When he uses the Wolf Fang Fist on Goku this time, it would succeed in killing Goku. With Goku now killed, he would proceed to rob Oolong of his capsules, though with him still being angered, he would likely use his sword to kill Oolong shortly afterwards. Since he doesn't know about Bulma being there, he would return to his hideout, though when Bulma eventually wakes up, she would find the corpses of both Goku and Oolong. This will likely scare her enough into giving up on her quest, especially since her protector is now gone. So, instead of continuing to Mount Frypan, she would likely try to go back home. Since she lost her capsules in the river, I don't see her making it out of the desert before she succumbs to dehydration. Back with Yamcha, as he revealed in the manga, he had no desire to rule the world, so after he managed to defeat Goku, he would just continue his days of robbing people that make their way through the desert. Of course, Poir would still help him too. The two would likely live out in the desert by themselves for a while, and since they continued to rob people of their money in capsules, they would be able to live comfortably. However, in the manga, Yamcha also mentioned that his dream was to get married. It all depends on if he gets over his fear of women or not eventually, but as we've seen in the manga, he is able to do so. In the case he does get over this fear, he'll likely settle down with someone like himself. The best option I see him getting with is Launch, since she is also a robber. They met when he went on a supply run to the city one day, and he bumped into her while she was escaping from robbing a bank. Of course, when he first meets her, he would be afraid of her. From there, and over time, things could develop into them committing crimes together. His fear of women would slowly subside, which leads to them developing a relationship together. He would likely remain in the desert, but he would likely make a larger and nicer lair now that he is with Launch. Regardless, he, Launch, and Poir would remain there for the rest of their lives, but then continuing to rob people in the desert. Though when they make supply runs to cities, they might rob banks together like Launch did. We open on Goku, Bulma, and Oolong going into Fungus Town, though Yamcha and Poir are still following them. As usual, Bulma was wearing the bunny outfit, so the people of the town feared her. However, after she gets new clothes, everyone doesn't even bat an eye at her. Anyway, when the rabbit mob comes to the town and tries to hit on her, she has Goku beat them up, which he does easily. Of course, they still call on their boss for help, so Monster Carrot then arrives. It's hard for Monster Carrot to win against Goku, but the easiest way would have been if he asked Goku to shake his hand instead of Bulma. He would be foolish enough to fall for it, so he would be the one that was turned into a carrot first. After that, Oolong would likely still flee, while Bulma would try and slap Monster Carrot, which unfortunately turns her into a carrot too. As mentioned mentioned earlier, Yamcha and Poor are watching this go down, so Yamcha intervenes, and he takes down the 2 soldiers so they got back up, but since he doesn't have a way to counter Monster Carrot's magic, he is turned into a carrot as well. Even Poor would be turned into a carrot after he tried to avenge Yamcha by shapeshifting into a wolf and attacking Monster Rabbit. With Goku, Yamcha, Poor, and Bulma turned into carrots, Monster Carrot would eat the 4 carrots. Since Oolong fled, and there was no one left to stop the rabbit mob, they would continue to terrorize Fungus Town. Anytime they wanted anything, they would keep coming to the town and just take it, since no one could stand up to them, so they would continue to be feared by anyone that lives inside of the town. While Goku, Bulma, Yamcha, Poor, and Oolong were trapped inside Pilaf's castle, he was outside summoning Shenron. Though as usual, Goku blasts a small hole in the wall with his Kamehameha. This allows for Poor and Oolong to turn into bats to fly out of the hole. Normally, they would reach Pilaf, and Oolong would cut him off to wish for panties. So, since Pilaf already was close to getting his wish, the easiest way for him to achieve it is just by Oolong reaching him a couple seconds too late, so Pilaf manages to state his wish. Of course, his wish was to be the ruler of the earth, so there's a couple ways I could see this wish going. However, I see it going in the way that he would take King Furry's place as the King of Earth. So, after Shenron finishes making the wish, he is teleported to the King's castle. For this wish to work, Shenron would have made everyone on Earth loyal to Pilaf, so that they accepted him as their new king. Regardless, when he arrives, King Furry's mind was affected as well. He accepts Emperor Pilaf as the new ruler and passes on the crown to him. Now, as for what Pilaf would do as king, he would likely kick off his reign with a large and lavish coronation ceremony. From there, the most likely thing he would do is have people make him a better castle than his current one, since this is quite small compared to his old one. This would be easy for them to accomplish, especially now that he has the world's money at his disposal. Also, he only wants to be recognized as being powerful, so besides having to talk about Emperor Pilaf being great, life for everyone wouldn't change much. Other than that, he wouldn't really have any other laws he makes. Anyway, he would also have the Earth's military under his control, but since things like the Red Ribbon Army are now loyal to him as well, he would merge the military in the Red Ribbon Army. Unless he tries to make the monarchy hereditary, no other rules are put into place under his reign. If he did have children or living family members, he probably sets it up so that the monarchy becomes hereditary. If he didn't have a family of his own, he could also choose to pass it on to either Mai or Shu, or one of their descendants, since they were loyal to him. Though, I think since he is king, he would eventually find himself a bride and have descendants of his own. Something to mention is that since the wish affected everyone on Earth, Goku and the heroes would believe he's the rightful ruler of Earth as well. Since Pilaf is no longer there to get in their way, Oolong and Poor would be able to open the door, locking them in there. Also, the wish might have affected their memory of what happened, since it would look bad on Pilaf if there was a group out there saying the current king imprisoned them and left them to die. Since no other threat comes to Earth, the world is in a time of peace for the rest of Pilaf's life. Though some of Goku's adventures likely stay the same, minus King Piccolo and Piccolo Jr., since they wouldn't come around, since Pilaf would never have a reason to release King Piccolo. Without Piccolo being around, the 23rd tournament is likely just a rematch between Tien, Shinhan, and Goku. Since the King of Earth isn't that involved in the story, nothing that major happens after Pilaf takes power. So, after the 23rd World Martial Arts Tournament, the heroes live out the rest of their lives peacefully, as no other threats come to Earth. When it comes to King Gurumez, his best chance to win starts in the fight between Pasta and Yamcha. Instead of the blood rubies protecting him from her shots, she manages to shoot and kill the bandit. Afterwards, she threatens Bulma and the others for the Dragon Ball, but as usual, Bulma refuses. Since Goku was held up by Bongo at the time, Pasta would kill Bulma, Pansy, Oolong, and Poor. Though with Goku now fighting Bongo in King Gurumez's throne room, the king would step up to take on Goku instead. After he transforms into a larger and more monstrous state, Goku begins to fight with King Gurumez, but none of his attacks would do anything against the king. His stomach would still be glowing since he had most of the Dragon Balls inside of it, though, since Bulma isn't there to summon the dragon, and Goku doesn't know how, nothing is there to stop King Gurumez from killing Goku. Since King Gurumez has a ravenous appetite, he might kill Goku by eating him. After doing so, he would regurgitate the Dragon Balls and give them to Bongo and Pasta. Now that they have all 7, they would go outside and summon Shenron. After the 2 of them summon Shenron, they would wish for King Gurumez's ravenous hunger to disappear. Though in this timeline, he isn't returned to his human form by Shenron, his hunger is just satiated. Afterwards, since he promised the blood rubies to Bongo and Pasta, they would gain the ones from the treasury. Also, the surrounding villages' farms would continue to be decimated to mine the blood rubies. He uses his army to enforce any of his decisions, so the farmers stand no chance of resisting them. By the time they are done mining all the blood rubies, his nearby land would be completely decimated. Assuming Bongo, Pasta, and the army are still loyal to him, he might set his eyes on invading other lands since his is in ruins, which, with the size and strength of his army, no one would be able to resist his invasions. Though he wouldn't take over the whole world, he would just invade enough places to gain land and to have a prosperous kingdom again. This way, he isn't just ruling over a ruined wasteland. It's hard to tell what the king's goals would be after that, but with the size of the army he controls, nothing would be able to get in his way. For Lucifer, it is harder to get him to win than some of the previous villains. This timeline begins with Gastel chasing both Goku and Krillin on the flying Nimbus. Anytime he got close to them, he uses Trident to try and stab them. Normally, he just barely misses Krillin's head, so this time, instead of missing Krillin, he stabs him through the head with his Trident, killing him. Obviously, this upsets Goku, but he doesn't have the time to worry about this since he still must avoid Gastel and the other monsters. Since Krillin died, it becomes harder for him to handle both Gastel and the other monsters chasing him. However, since Krillin died, he's also able to fly higher and faster on the flying Nimbus, so he didn't have to worry about Krillin falling. So, he would escape ahead of Gastel, which ironically allows Gastel to survive, since he wouldn't be right behind Goku or low enough to the ground to get eaten by the swamp monster. Meanwhile, Igor would be getting ready to drain Bulma's blood for the toast Lucifer wanted to have. This is when Lucifer's speech is interrupted, as Goku crashes into the tent where the sleeping princess is, while Launch also arrives and attacks some of the monsters. Goku's arrival, along with Launch's, serves as enough of a distraction to distract Igor from using the syringe to take Bulma's blood. Meanwhile, Yamcha, Puar, and Oolong had followed Goku, but they disguise themselves as monsters. Launch then steals the sleeping princess, which turns out to be a gem, so Goku chases after her, so Lucifer and the monsters chase after them. After they leave, Oolong's disguise wears off, so he, Yamcha, and Puar are caught then held at gunpoint. Back with Launch, she'd take out quite a bit of the monsters with her gun, but she eventually sneezes and turns into her good form. However, Lucifer was right behind them, so when she crashes and Goku picks up the gem, Lucifer picks him up by his neck. Normally, he would have picked Krillin up like this and threatened to kill him unless Goku gave him the gem, but of course, that can't happen here. So, Lucifer would kill Goku here like how he threatened to kill Krillin, by ripping his head off. This would shock Launch, but she isn't captured by Lucifer and the other monsters. Yamcha, Oolong, and Puar were captured by the monsters as well, so they are then encased in a wall of rock alongside Launch, so that they can't escape. Back with Bulma, she was still tied up so that Igor could take her blood and they could use it as a toast. After Lucifer retrieved the gem, he opened the roof so that he could use the full moon to awaken the sleeping princess. He then uses the awakened gem to power the Devil Castle Cannon, which he uses to destroy the sun. This begins the Reign of Darkness, which allows the monsters to now roll over and terrorize the planet. In celebration of the Reign of Darkness, Lucifer has Igor take Bulma's blood, which all the monsters then use her blood as a toast. Since there are a lot of monsters, Bulma likely dies from blood loss after Igor was done using the syringe on her. Lucifer then ordered the monsters to kill Yamcha, Puar, Oolong, and Launch, so there isn't a reason to keep the other heroes imprisoned anymore. After they are killed, the monsters are now free to do whatever they want across the world, so they all scatter and begin to wreak havoc across the planet. Anyone that dares to stand up to the monsters, such as Master Roshi, are killed by the monsters. This causes the world to fall into a state of darkness and despair, as it is now ruled by Lucifer and his army of monsters. Getting Colonel Silver to win is a long shot. His victory is based on how in the manga Goku completely ignored Silver soldiers after he landed and went straight for the Dragon Ball. In the manga, soldiers never fired a shot at him when they had the chance. If they did shoot him when he was ignoring them, he likely would have been caught off guard. We've seen Goku be gravely injured when being caught off guard before, like how Sorbet injured him in Resurrection F. So, when they shoot him in the head while he was ignoring them, his defenses would have been lowered, so he would be killed. Since Silver got the Dragon Radar from Goku's body, along with one of the Dragon Balls, he would report to Commander Red at once. He would likely be happy with Colonel Silver's performance, and since this is before Goku managed to take down any parts of the army, he might promote Silver to the rank of General. With his new rank of General, he would probably collect more of the Dragon Balls for Commander Red, which he would be able to do with ease. This will apply to the other Red Ribbon Army chapters as well, but in the manga, Commander Red told Staff Officer Black to give the radar to General Copper and have him find the last Dragon Ball. This would mean that they still see the Dragon Ball on their radar, so Emperor Pilaf hasn't found it yet, so, in the timeline where Goku was killed, they would be able to get the last Dragon Ball before Pilaf. Anyway, just to make these variations more interesting, instead of the Red Ribbon Army conquering the world each time, I think it would be interesting to see the leader who won overthrow Commander Red after learning about his stupid wish to be made taller. So, after all 7 Dragon Balls are gathered, Commander Red would blurt out that he can finally wish to be taller. General Silver, of course, would be angry with the commander that the sacrifices they made were just for him to be taller. Staff Officer Black would be angry about this too, since General Silver has men of his own. His faction of the army would take out both Commander Red and Staff Officer Black. Without Commander Red's guidance, the other leaders in the army might not support Silver, so he would likely command them to be executed. This is also something that will apply to most of the other Red Ribbon Army chapters, since no matter who steals control of the army, there would likely be infighting between the factions of the army. The only change each time would be who takes power in the end, based on who was the one to take out Goku. In this case, it would be Silver that takes command of the Red Ribbon Army. Speaking of that, he likely changed the name and focus of the army. Since Silver led the aerial division, he changes the Red Ribbon Army to the Silver Scarf Air Force. But there still would be some land and navy units, most of them become aerial units. Then, he would use the Dragon Ball to wish for world domination, so he would become the ruler of the earth, with everyone now loyal to him. Since he purged the other officers, he would find others to become officers within his military. Also, since everyone is loyal to him, his military would be combined with the king's military after the crown is peacefully passed to him. As for how he rules, Silver is the type to ask questions first before resorting to violence. So, since everyone was affected by the wish to accept him as ruler, he doesn't have much of a reason to resort to violence. The only exception might be the heroes, since they might be able to resist the wish, but I don't think they could resist Shenron's power. So, this will apply to all the other chapters where a wish for world domination is made, and the heroes are still alive, which, in this case, the heroes would become loyal to the new ruler of Earth. This could go two ways, them becoming part of the ruling forces, or them staying as civilians, but the wish made them fine with the change in leadership. As for which option happens, I'll leave it up to your interpretation on what you find more interesting. While Goku was storming Muscle Tower, he blew through the enemies with ease. The only one that could have been a threat to him was Android 8, though, as we know, Android 8 was too nice to hurt or kill anyone. So, General White's best chance of defeating Goku would be if Android 8 worked as intended instead of him being too nice to fight. Since Android 8's power would be way too much for Goku to handle, he couldn't do anything against the android and would be killed. Like we see in the Path to Power movie, he would likely kill Goku by lifting him by the neck and choking him. With Goku now dead, Android 8 would drop his body, as Ninja Murasaki unlocks Android 8 back up. He would then retrieve the Dragon Ball and the Dragon Radar from Goku's body. They're given to General White, which he uses the radar to find the other Dragon Ball that's in Jingle Village. Normally, Android 8 found this Dragon Ball and hid it from the Red Ribbon Army, though in a timeline where Android 8 is loyal, he might not have found the Dragon Ball, since he would stay in Muscle Tower to guard it. Regardless, General White would go give the Dragon Radar and the two Dragon Balls to Commander Red. Since General White achieved these things for Commander Red, and with so few casualties against Goku, he would likely be treated favorably by the Commander. Anyway, he would help Commander Red in gathering the remaining Dragon Balls. He would likely be present when Commander Red goes to make his wish, so when he hears about what Commander Red's stupid wish is, he would use his forces to overthrow him. Of course, the other officers would be trying to take power for themselves, but General White and his forces would manage to kill the other officers. After taking on the role of commander, White would change the name of the army to the White Waistcoat Army. Now that he was the commander, he would use the Dragon Balls to wish for world domination. After he made this wish, the title of King of Earth would be transferred to him. Anyway, since his army focused on Arctic warfare, he would make Muscle Tower the new army headquarters. He would keep regular army divisions, along with the Navy and Air Force divisions too. He might also have a stealth division in his army, led by Ninja Murasaki, since he would still be loyal to the general. As for how he would rule, he's slightly impatient at times and easily irritated, but he can also be complimentary. So, if his forces get things done in a timely manner, he wouldn't be that bad to work for. However, it doesn't mean he is lenient with his forces, since in the actual story we've seen him send Android 8 to Boyon's floor to get eaten for not killing Goku. Speaking of Android 8, since he was a success in this timeline, he might get Dr. Gero to continue making androids for his army. He also might have Major Metallotron be rebuilt, since even though he lost against Goku, he did put up a good fight against the young boy. Regardless, with his army at his back, along with the power of the androids, nobody would be able to stop Commander White from achieving his goals, even if they wanted to. I didn't originally plan to include Major Metallotron and Ninja Murasaki in this, since I couldn't think of a way that they could take control of the army. However, I did think of a way that they could, which it would be like the timeline of General White taking power. Everything would go the same, up until after General White takes power. For the sake of this timeline, General White's wish for world domination wouldn't stop anyone from overthrowing him, so Major Metallotron could do so. As for how Major Metallotron would take power from him, it's harder to decide, since he was shown to follow orders without hesitation. Though, he was also shown to have feelings as well, since he felt frustration while fighting Goku. So, if General White ever angered or frustrated Major Metallotron enough, he would turn on the General. He would easily be able to overpower him, so General White doesn't stand a chance and is killed. Afterwards, with Major Metallitron being in power, he would rename the army from the White Waistcoat Army to the Metallic Mittens Army. I only came up with this name since Major Metallitron's name in the manga is Sergeant Metallic. Anyway, as for what he would do once he's in power, he would likely have Dr. Gero keep making androids for him. He would have seen how weak humans were in comparison to himself, so he would try and get his entire army made up of androids. Of course, that would take years to complete, but Dr. Gero would be able to handle this task. Afterwards, even though Major Metallitron wasn't keeping any of the other human soldiers around, he would keep Dr. Gero around so that he could repair the androids if they needed it. He might also have Dr. Gero continue to upgrade himself so that he is made stronger as well. That way, no one could overthrow him like how he overthrew General White. Anyway, with Major Metallitron now in power and having an army of androids on his side, no one can get in the way of achieving his goals. As for Ninja Murasaki, while he did follow General White's orders, there could be a situation that happens where he must take on the General. And something we only hear in the Funimation dub, he had a picture of General White's sister's dressing. When he dropped it in the anime during his fight with Goku, he was nervous about the General seeing it. So, in this timeline, he accidentally drops it in front of the General at some point. Of course, this will likely cause the General to attack him. We're never given specific power levels for these two, but with Ninja Murasaki's speed and weapons, I think he could kill the General quickly. Now that he took command of the army, he would change the name from the White Waistcoat Army to the Purple Pajamas Army. I only came up with this name, since in the manga, Ninja Murasaki's name is Sergeant Major Purple. Regardless, with him in command, he would have his soldiers trained to become ninjas. So, the army mainly becomes ninja focused, so any of their operations would be done stealthily, though he would likely keep some regular soldier divisions in case he ever had to use the army for some reason. Also, with him training the soldiers to be stronger, he would likely train as well, so that he couldn't be overthrown like how he overthrew General White. With Ninja Murasaki now having a highly skilled ninja army on his side, no one can stop him from doing whatever he desires. For General Blue to win, it isn't that much of a stretch for him to be able to win. At one point in the first fight between General Blue and Goku, he was already close to winning. After Bulma told General Blue where the Dragon Ball was, he was prepared to shoot and kill him with his shotgun. I know there's times Goku can't resist bullets, but since he was paralyzed by Blue's telekinesis, this shot would have killed him. The only thing that saved Goku was the mouse running by, so in this timeline, the mouse doesn't run by. General Blue then shoots Goku, thus killing the young boy. After killing Goku, he would kill Bulma and Krillin with the shotgun as well. He would then take the radar from Bulma, and he takes the treasure chest as well. He also gets the nearby Dragon Ball before he flees the collapsing cave by using the pirate sub. Once outside, he would regroup with the rest of the army and get into his regular submarine. From there, since Company B failed to take down Master Roshi, he would head there himself. He doesn't stand a chance against Roshi in terms of raw power, but I think his telekinesis would make Roshi defenseless, just like it did to Goku. After all, he was able to use his telekinesis to tie Roshi up with rope, so I don't see why he couldn't use his telekinesis to stop Roshi from moving. He then kills Master Roshi, before turning his attention to Launch and the Turtle. In the manga, he speculated that the Turtle was strong too, so he would kill both Launch and the Turtle. After killing the heroes, he would collect the 2 Dragon Balls Bulma left on the island. In total, he would have 3 Dragon Balls, so when he reports back to Commander Red, he gives all 3 of them to the Commander. He also gives the Dragon Radar to Commander Red, and since there are only 3 Dragon Balls left, he is likely sent out to gather one of them. Regardless, like in the chapters before, when Commander Red goes to make his wish, General Blue would think it was a stupid wish. This time, however, it isn't completely random for General Blue to want to overthrow Red. In the Path to Power movie, General Blue wanted to replace Staff Officer Black after he brought Commander Red most of the Dragon Balls. So, the desire for a higher position of power is present in General Blue. Anyway, after taking out Commander Red, he would still have to deal with the other officers, since in the absence of power, they all would be vying for the spot of Commander. However, with his power of telekinesis, he would be able to make quick work of the other officers. Eventually, he also might be interrupted by Yamcha, Oolong, and Plor, since they knew about the heroes taking on the Red Ribbon Army. When they never returned, they likely figured something happened to them, so they would try to avenge them by taking down Blue. Though with his power of telekinesis, he would still be able to make quick work of them. Now that he is in power, he would make his wish for world domination. Of course, this basically means he becomes the next King of Earth instead of King Furry. Since he controlled the naval divisions of the Red Ribbon Army, he would change the army's name to the Blue Bandana Navy, though he would keep Air Force divisions and land divisions, just in case he needed them. As for how he rules, he would be a tough ruler, to say the least. We've seen in the manga how he killed people in his this division over simple things, such as picking their nose. So, he would continue to strive to make his Navy perfect, with every soldier having to fit his standards. It would take him a while to find enough people that fit his standards, but since the whole world was loyal to him, he would be able to find enough people eventually. Thankfully for him, the wish made people loyal to him, or there likely would have been rebellions against his harsh leadership style. So, he would continue to rule with an iron fist, without anyone standing in his way. This is another character I didn't originally plan to include. This is for Captain Dark. It would be difficult for him to win as well since he was tasked to go face Roshi, which he obviously stood no chance against the Turtle Hermit. So, in a timeline where he wins, it would be one where General Blue and Captain Dark didn't split up. Instead, they went to go after Master Roshi together instead of chasing after Goku immediately. This would allow the heroes time to get the Dragon Ball, and then they could swoop in and take it from them. Regardless, when they confront Master Roshi, he wouldn't willingly give up the Dragon Balls, but since General Blue is there, he would use his telekinesis on Roshi, thus making him defenseless, so Captain Dark has his men shoot and kill the Turtle Hermit. Of course, they would then kill Launch and Turtle as well, since General Blue knew they were allies of Goku. Regardless, after obtaining the 2 Dragon Balls Bulma left on Roshi's island, they would wait there for Goku and the others to return with the other Dragon Ball. Of course, once they arrive and see that Roshi and the others are dead, this would anger the two, though by using the power of his telekinesis, General Blue would easily be able to beat down the 2 young boys. Since they aren't in a cave, a mouse wouldn't scare General Blue away, so he would kill Goku while Captain Dark killed Krillin. They would then kill Bulma, and they'd take the Dragon Radar from her. Now that they have the 3 Dragon Balls and the Dragon Radar, the 2 of them would return to Commander Red. Now, the rest of this timeline goes the same as General Blue's victory, up until after he wishes for world domination. Captain Dark is shown to be easygoing, which is a far cry from General Blue's strict mannerisms. So, it isn't hard to see Captain Dark getting tired of General Blue's strict rules and plotting against him. Based on the interactions between the two, Blue likely wouldn't have expected Dark to do anything like that. Then again, he didn't expect Captain Dark to do much of anything, so when he goes to overthrow General Blue, he'll likely catch him off guard and shoot him in the back, thus killing him. After he then takes power of the Navy, he would rename it to the Dark Denim Navy. Now that he is in power, he wouldn't be anywhere near as strict on his soldiers as General Blue was. That doesn't mean he would let them become soft, though. He would just be more lenient on how they do things. Which, this might make the soldiers happier under his command than they were under General Blue's, since they don't have to worry about every little thing potentially getting them killed. So, this likely makes it so that no one tries to overthrow him like how he overthrew General Blue. With him having the Navy's full support like this, he would be able to accomplish any goals he sets for the Navy. Captain Yellow is another difficult one to get a victory for, as he stood no chance against Goku. The only way I see of him winning is if Goku doesn't reach the sacred land of Korin on time. This means that when Captain Yellow kidnaps Upa and holds him hostage, the trade of Upa for the Dragon Ball goes through. He would then return to the Red Ribbon Army headquarters and give the ball to Commander Red. However, they still must come up with a way to deal with Goku, and Mercenary Tao would be Commander Red's best option. Around the same time Tao arrives, General Blue arrives as well. The fight between Blue and Tao would serve as a warning to Captain Yellow that if he fails him, he would be killed in the same way. Anyway, with them now having the Dragon Radar that General Blue gave them, Captain Yellow would be sent to get the other one that is showing up on the radar. As usual, Mercenary Tao would be sent after Goku, who is heading towards the next Dragon Ball. Their fight would go about the same as usual, though it wouldn't happen at the sacred land of Korin, since Goku never had a reason to stop there. Anyway, for the sake of this timeline of the villains winning, I'm going to say that Tao kills Goku, instead of the Dragon Ball blocking Tao's blast this time around. After receiving the Dragon Balls, Tao would deliver them to Commander Red in exchange for his fee. When Captain Yellow returns for the 7th Dragon Ball, he would find out what Commander Red's plans for the actual wish was. Of course, this would anchor Captain Yellow along with Staff Officer Black, but since all 3 of them would be vying for power, and Captain Yellow's men would likely stay loyal to him, they managed to kill Commander Red and Staff Officer Black. As usual, the Red Ribbon Army would then devolve into infighting. Since Captain Yellow managed to take out Commander Red and Staff Officer Black, more of the army would support him than the other factions. By this time, the only other factions left were General Coppers and Colonel Violets, since Goku took out the others. Anyway, while it would take a bit, he would eventually take out the other officers, though he still has the problem of taking on the other heroes, so they would likely try to avenge Goku, but with the Red Ribbon Army on his side, he would be able to defeat them. From there, he makes his wish for world domination and becomes the next King of Earth. It was hard for me to come up with what he would rename the Red Ribbon Army to, since most articles of clothing I found starting with a Y were 2 words instead of 1. So, I decided on a Yukata, since it was all that came to mind. So, he changes the name from the Red Ribbon Army to the Yellow Yukata Air Force. I only decided to call it the Air Force instead of the Army, since in the one major scene we see with Captain Yellow, he was relying on his plane to help achieve his goal. As for how he would rule, unlike the other officers, he really seems to care for his troops. So, even if people weren't made to be loyal to him because of his wish, they might not have minded serving under him. He is also persistent in getting people to cooperate with him, though he still has his men resort to violence if they must, so he isn't a good guy by any means. This was kind of a joke chapter to include at first, since I only wanted to include it as a reference to my old Goku turning evil story. Anyway, there are circumstances in which Mercenary Tao could win and potentially take control of the Red Ribbon Army, though it is a long shot. So, this timeline will start during the fight between Tao and Goku, though, instead of Goku just barely surviving because of the Dragon Ball blocking Tao's Dodon Ray, he's killed instead. Tao then gathers the Dragon Balls, and instead of going right to Commander Red, he goes and gets a new outfit made, since Goku destroyed his current outfit. When he does eventually give them to Commander Red, they realize he's missing one, so he returns to the sacred land of Korin. By now, Upa buried Goku's body, so he gets in the way of Tao trying to dig him up. However, Tao would mercilessly kill the young boy, and then dig up Goku and take the last Dragon Ball. After giving that one to Commander Red, he now had 6 of the 7 Dragon Balls, and General Copper was on his way with the 7th. So, he would have Tao wait briefly for his payment, since he was going to be busy making his wish. After receiving the Dragon Ball, Commander Red would go outside to summon the dragon. So, for Tao to go against Commander Red, the major thing that would have to happen is Red wishing for world domination instead of being taller. In a timeline where Red is made the ruler of the world, he might assume that Tao will now be loyal to him, so he refuses to pay Tao. This way, he could use the money to help rebuild the army after the damage Goku caused to it. For the sake of this timeline, I'm going to say it doesn't stop anyone from being able to overthrow Red. I know in previous chapters I made it to where others didn't want to overthrow them, but for this timeline to work, Tao would have to want to overthrow him. Anyway, Tao would be able to overthrow Commander Red and Staff Officer Black easily, so they wouldn't stand a chance against the assassin, and would be killed. However, before he could do anything else, the Red Ribbon Army base would be attacked by the other heroes, so they knew about Goku taking on the Red Ribbon Army. Though none of them would be able to stand up to the assassin either, so they would be killed as well. With him now in control of most of the army, he would likely eliminate the other remaining officers, like General Copper, so that they can't try to take power for themselves. Tao would then rename the army, which the name I came up with was a reference to my old Goku turning evil story as well. In that story, I had Tao take over the Red Ribbon Army and take on the codename Taffy. I only had him take on that codename because it fit with the color naming scheme, his outfit color, and it starts with the same letter. Since Tao wears pink, Taffy is a shade of pink, and it starts with T. Also, I just thought it was the kind of joke name Dragon Ball would do, for someone as ruthless as Tao to have a silly codename like Taffy. Regardless, with his codename being Taffy, he would rename the army to the Taffy Tuxedo Army. With the army and the world under his rule, he would train his soldiers to be more like mercenaries and assassins. So, people would come to the army to hire them to complete mercenary jobs. This way, Tao still can use the army to make money, but he can also send soldiers to do the mercenary jobs if he doesn't think they are worthy of his skills. He could also work in coordination with his brother, Master Shen, by having him train his soldiers in martial arts. This way, they would be highly skilled in both martial arts and assassination techniques. So, with Tao at the head of the army, it would become an unstoppable killing machine, with his name only becoming feared even more. Colonel Violet was the most difficult one for me to come up with a win for, since in the manga she doesn't fight Goku, and she doesn't fight him in the anime either. The only media I've seen her fight him in was the Path to Power movie in the game Dragon Ball Origins 2. Even then, she didn't stand a chance against him, so she was beaten with ease. It's a long shot, but the only way I can think of that she could win is by planting her explosives in preparation for Goku, instead of using them to blow open the vault. All her explosives there should easily be able to catch Goku off guard when he runs over them, so they would kill him. Though with these explosives being planted at the entrance to the Red Ribbon Army base, the explosion would damage the base as well. So, while she would face some reprimands for this, they wouldn't be as harsh since she managed to take out Goku. Since the Dragon Balls would survive this explosion, she would give them to Commander Red. Before General Copper arrived with the last Dragon Ball, the other heroes would have arrived. However, since the army at the base wasn't weakened by Goku yet, they would be able to stop the other heroes and kill them. Anyway, when General Copper does arrive with the last Dragon Ball, they would gather all of them in the courtyard to summon Shenron. Although superhero movie hinted at some connections between Commander Red and Colonel Violet, she doesn't care about her soldiers or the fate of the army. Instead, when Goku was raiding the base, she raided the vault and took off with the money. The point is that after hearing what Commander Red plans to wish for, she wouldn't have any qualms against turning against him. Like with the previous officers, she would come out on top in the power struggle between her, Commander Red, and Staff Officer Black. After they both were killed, she would be able to take down General Copper and his faction so that he wouldn't try to take control of the army. After taking control of the army, she would rename it to the Violet Veil Air Force. I only called it an Air Force instead of an army since when we see her in the Path to Power movie, she fights Goku while in the plane. Regardless, she would then make the wish for world domination, so she would become the Queen of Earth, with the entire planet becoming loyal to her. For how she would rule the planet, she would be ruthless to her forces, as she doesn't care what happens to them. As long as she achieves her goals, she would be happy. Besides that, she's only shown concern for animals, so she would ensure that her actions don't harm any animals in any way. Anyway, the only goals I can think of for her would be that she would try to grow the amount of money in her vault. Though with the wish making the people of Earth loyal to her, they would willingly give up their valuables to her if she so desired them. So, while she does have her Air Force to back her up if it came to her needing to use force, she never has to. After Staff Officer Black killed Commander Red and titled himself Commander Black, he didn't stand much of a chance against Goku. The only time I seen him have a chance of winning against Goku was right after he picked him up while he was in the battle jacket. Goku was struggling to escape his grip, so if he didn't throw Goku outside to blast him, Goku couldn't have gotten free. So, instead of throwing him outside, Commander Black crushes Goku in his hands, thus killing the young boy. With Goku defeated, he would exit the battle jacket and get the Dragon Balls from Goku's body. However, he would then spot the other heroes coming, so he would get back into the battle jacket. While it's hard to say if he'd be able to, but for the sake of this timeline, I'm going to say that he and the remnants of the army managed to kill the heroes. Afterwards, General Copper delivers the final Dragon Ball, though, in case General Copper ever wanted to take power for himself, he might kill him preemptively. He then summons Shenron and wishes to rule the world. He would essentially become the King of Earth, and the first thing he would do is set to rebuilding the Red Ribbon Army to its previous strength. Which, it's a good thing for him that the world is now loyal to him, since that makes it easy to find willing recruits for the army. Also, since Commander Red is no longer the leader, he would rename the army, so it is now called the Black Boots Army. While he wouldn't be as willing to sacrifice the soldiers' lives as Commander Red was, as we've seen when he was talking to Goku, he will still resort to brutal tactics to obtain his goals if peaceful negotiations don't work. Regardless, since the whole world was made loyal to him, the army would reach newfound levels of power, which, with the Black Boots Army at his back, he would be able to achieve any of the goals he wanted to, whatever they may be. The easiest way for Commander Red to get the victory, without anyone overthrowing him, is by Tao killing Goku. Instead of his Dodon Ray hitting the Dragon Ball, it would instead hit Goku right through the chest, killing him. Of course, Tao wouldn't find the Dragon Ball under his shirt right away, so he's still told by Commander Red that he missed one. So, after he got a new outfit made, he would return to the Sacred Land of Corn to get the 4th Dragon Ball. Upa would try to avenge both Bora and Goku, but Tao would easily kill him. He would then dig up Goku's corpse, since Upa buried him, and retrieve the Dragon Ball from his body. After that, he then returns to Commander Red and gives him the Dragon Balls in exchange for his fee for killing Goku. After the remaining Dragon Balls are collected, he would summon Shenron to make his wish to be taller. Shenron would easily grant this, and of course his wish would anger Staff Officer Black, since he thought Commander Red was going to wish for world domination. I can only assume Commander Red has a battle jacket of his own, so he and Staff Officer Black would get into a fight while in their respective battle jackets. Though, it's also likely Commander Red had his battle jacket be made stronger than the others, so he would win this fight and kill Staff Officer Black. He might also take out General Copper, since finding out what his real wish was likely angered the General too. As a brief side note, I'm not doing a timeline based on General Copper, since we never see him, as he's only mentioned in the manga. The same goes for Colonel Brown, since he's only mentioned in the manga as well. Anyway, since he no longer has much protection, he might hire mercenary Tao permanently, at least until he can rebuild the strength of his army. Anyway, the heroes knew about Goku fighting the Red Ribbon Army, but when they heard nothing from him, they would go to their base looking for him. So Roshi, Krillin, Yamcha, Puar, Oolong, Launch, and Bulma go there. However, with Tao there, they wouldn't stand a chance, so they would be killed by the assassin. With the heroes dead, after Commander Red rebuilds his army, he would be able to take the world over by force. He would storm King's castle and remove King Furry by force, but since the King and his military would try to resist, the Red Ribbon Army kills the King and decimates his military. Commander Red then crowns himself the King, as he goes on to rule the world with an iron fist. This is a weird timeline to discuss, as Tien did win against Goku in the 22nd World Martial Arts Tournament, so this time, I'll be discussing what if Tien won and stayed evil, instead of being swayed over to the side of good by Master Roshi. This timeline starts during the third match of the tournament, when Tien Shenhan found out that Goku beat Mercenary Tao. After Tien passed this information on to Master Shen, he ordered Shotsu to kill Krillin. Originally, during their match, Krillin taught himself the Kamehameha at the last moment and used it to counter Shotsu's Super Dodon Ray. So, if Krillin didn't manage to teach himself the Kamehameha, Krillin would have been killed by Shotsu's Super Dodon Ray. Since Shotsu killed Krillin, he would be disqualified from the tournament. Goku would be angered by this, but his match with Palmput goes the same as it normally does. With one of Roshi's disciples having been killed, he might take the fight with Tien more seriously, and might not try to convince Tien to abandon Master Shen's side. Anyway, their fight would go the same as it usually does, but Roshi wouldn't purposely jump out of the ring. Instead, he might use his full power against Tien. However, based on his statements in the manga, even if he did go all out against Tien, he still would have lost. So, while the match is even longer and drawn out, Tien manages to beat Master Roshi. The next match, which would have been between Krillin and Goku, obviously wouldn't happen. So, the tournament goes right into the finals between Goku and Tien Shenhan. This means that Roshi wouldn't get the chance to talk to Tien after the match, but even if he had the chance to, he likely wouldn't talk to him, since he sees him as irredeemable in this timeline. Anyway, after the fight between Tien and Goku begins, it would go the same up until the part where Shotsu starts using his telekinesis to hold Goku down. Without Roshi having planted the seed of doubt into Tien's mind, he wouldn't disobey Master Shen. So, when he is given the order to kill Goku, he complies this time. While Shotsu is holding Goku down with his telekinesis, Tien rose into the air to use the Tri-Beam. As in the manga, Tien said Goku would die if he didn't dodge this attack. Since Shotsu forced him to be motionless, Goku is killed when he is hit by the Tri-Beam. With Tien killing Goku, he is disqualified from the tournament, but the title of champion is passed on to Jackie Chun, since he was the only other semi-finalist in this timeline. Anyway, with both Krillin and Goku being killed, Roshi would likely be provoked into attacking Tien. But this also means that Jackie Chun's identity would be revealed to the public. Regardless, with Shotsu using his telekinesis, Tien would be able to kill Roshi as well. After this, Shen would congratulate Tien on his victory, but he also would say that they have one more target. Since Yamcha is still alive, they would go to the hospital. Even though it would be useless, the other heroes like Launch, Bulma, Oolong, and Puar would get in Tien's way. However, both Tien and Shotsu would be able to easily kill them. They would then easily kill Yamcha as well, as he was in no state to defend himself. Now that the tournament is over, Tien and Shotsu go back to training with Master Shen. Something to mention is that Mercenary Tao would still be turned into Cyborg Tao with the help of Master Shen and the money he made from being an assassin. Also, since no one was alive to receive the prize money from the tournament, Tien and Shotsu likely stole the prize money, so it could be used as well to help turn Tao into a cyborg. Anyway, they would also train with Tao while they were also training with Master Shen. In the manga, Tien said that his goal is to become the world's greatest assassin like Mercenary Tao, so he and Shotsu would be trained to become assassins by Mercenary Tao. After they learned everything they needed to from Master Shen and Tao, they would go their separate ways. Though they would still be in good standing with their old masters, they just no longer had a reason to keep training with them. They would be able to become the world's best assassins easily, since they would be far stronger than Master Shen and Mercenary Tao. Since they would be the best assassins, they would be able to charge even more than Mercenary Tao did, so it wouldn't take long for them to become rich from their career. Something else they might do is become the next Masters of the Crane School after Master Shen decides to retire. With them being the new Masters of the Crane School, it would become more focused on training people in both martial arts and assassination techniques. This means that the Crane School becomes more like a Brotherhood of Assassins, instead of just a martial arts school. Regardless, Tien and Shotsu would become world-renowned for being the best teachers of martial arts, now that Master Roshi is no longer around and Master Shen retired. However, they would also become feared across the world for their assassination techniques. Their students becoming world-renowned assassins as well would only help to spread the fear of the Crane School. From then on, people would be careful not to cross the Crane School, or anyone for that matter, as they never know when they might be their next target. King Piccolo very nearly won against the heroes, since in his first fight with Goku, he thought the young blue was dead. When he checked to feel his heartbeat, there wasn't one, so he took the Dragon Ball from Goku and left. Miraculously, Goku's heart somehow restarted, so he had Yajirobe taken to Korin's tower. In this timeline, however, Goku's heart doesn't miraculously restart, so he is dead. After King Piccolo takes the Dragon Ball and leaves, Yajirobe comes out to give Goku a decent burial, as it was the least he could do. Everyone already thought Goku was dead, so Roshi still tells Tien and Shotsu that the plan is to hide the Dragon Balls and steal King Piccolo's when he arrives. King Piccolo swallows the Dragon Balls, which forces the heroes to fight him, so Roshi knocks Tien unconscious. He then tells Shatsu to forget the plan and to stay hidden no matter what happens. Roshi then tries using the evil containment wave to seal King Piccolo in the rice cooker, but he misses, and then dies from using the technique. With Roshi now dead, King Piccolo retrieves the buried Dragon Balls and then summons Shenron. By this time, Tien was partially conscious, so he spoke to Shatsu telepathically and told him to wish for King Piccolo to be destroyed before he could make his wish. Shatsu agrees, but before he can finish stating his wish, King Piccolo blasts and kills him. He then wishes for his youth to be restored, which Shenron grants for him. After his youth is restored, and before Shenron can disappear, King Piccolo kills the dragons so no one can make any more wishes. King Piccolo then planned to go to the king's castle, but before he did, he kicked Pilaf, Mai, and Shu off his ship since he no longer needed them. Regardless, he then easily storms the king's castle, but King Furry tried to escape before Piccolo could reach him. The Demon King then jumped onto his hover car and demanded that King Furry make an announcement to the world that he is their new king. King Furry refused, so King Piccolo leveled part of Central City, which forced King Furry to agree to his demands. Meanwhile, after Tien was able to get back up, he practiced using the evil containment wave. While it takes him a while to be able to perfect it, he does eventually manage to do so. He then left to look for King Piccolo, but on the way there he called the heroes at Kame House and informed them of the location of Roshi and Shatsu's bodies. Regardless, they are interrupted by King Furry making his address on TV, but when he tries to improvise, King Piccolo takes over. He then announces his plans, which he starts with saying that he's abolishing every law enforcement agency, so people can do whatever they want. Anyone that tries to keep justice will be killed by his demons. That isn't all he plans to do though, as he makes his next announcement. Since the Earth is divided into 43 provinces, he had 43 cards prepared that were numbered 1 to 43. Every year, on May 9th, he will draw a card and destroy whichever province is that number. This day becomes known as King Piccolo Commemoration Day, but regardless, he challenges anyone that doesn't like this to come and try to stop him. He then draws the first card, which had the number 29 on it. Province 29 is West City, so he warned everyone there to run, as he was on his way to destroy it. After the heroes found out Tien's plan to try and sacrifice himself while sealing away King Piccolo, Yamcha decided to head there too, even though his leg was still broken. Regardless, Tien then arrives at King's castle, so King Piccolo decided to use him to show an example of what happens to the people that oppose him. Since the rice cooker was cracked, Tien gives up on his plan of using the evil containment wave, though when he goes to challenge King Piccolo, he spits out the egg-containing drum, since he didn't need to dirty his own hands by fighting Tien. Their fight would go the same way as in the manga, up until King Piccolo orders Drum to tear out Tien's heart. Since Goku isn't alive to save Tien, Drum would then tear out his heart like he was ordered to, thus killing Tien. Meanwhile, Yamcha, Bulma, and Launch went to go help Tien, while Oolong and Puar went to search for Roshi and Shatsu's bodies. Anyway, with Tien now killed, he would make a broadcast of Tien's body to show what happens to anyone that disobeys him. King Piccolo then heads towards West City as he planned to. Once he arrives, he would destroy the city, thus killing everyone who didn't evacuate the city in time. Though before he left the ruins, Yamcha, Bulma, and Launch would arrive. Yamcha would be the hero's best chance at this point, but his leg is still broken, so he couldn't give this fight his all. King Piccolo would easily kill him, which would shock both Bulma and Launch, but he would then kill them as well, so they couldn't try to get in his way. Briefly off topic, Oolong and Puar would eventually gather the bodies of all the heroes and bury them at Kame House. Anyway, from there, King Piccolo would return to King's Castle, where he sets out ruling the world how he wants to. After he abolishes all the law enforcement agencies, the world will devolve into anarchy, as criminals would now be doing whatever they wanted without consequence. Also, King Piccolo's demon clan would wreak havoc across the earth. He might make more demons as well, and potentially even remake Tambourine and Symbol, since he can choose what the demons look like. Since Shenron was destroyed, and no one else is around to stand up to King Piccolo, Kame might make a stand against him, though King Piccolo likely figured Kame would come down to attack him at some point, so he trained in preparation for that day. However, since he couldn't kill Kame without causing himself to die, he would attempt to teach himself the evil containment wave. Now, it's hard to say if he could learn this and close the gap in power between himself and Kame, but for the sake of this timeline, I'm going to say he manages to do so. When Kame does eventually confront King Piccolo, it would be a long and drawn out fight, but the Demon King just barely manages to steal away the Guardian of Earth and the rice cooker. After burying the rice cooker where no one could find it, he can rest easy now as he faces no other threats. Over the years, other martial artists might rise and try to take on King Piccolo. Even though they know what will happen if they lose, it's better to try than it is to do nothing except sit around and watch the world burn. Some of the martial artists that challenged King Piccolo to be Yajirobe, the Ox King, and Chi-Chi. Unfortunately for them, none of them would stand a chance against the Demon King. Anyway, King Piccolo would keep his promise of destroying a province every year. Since there were 42 provinces left that he hasn't destroyed, he would destroy the last province in age 795. After the last province is destroyed, there would still be humans humans alive had evacuated the provinces before he destroyed them, so he would task his demons with hunting down and killing the remaining humans. Even the Demon King himself would join in on hunting down the last humans alive. 2 of the last humans alive would have been Oolong and Poir, as they would have hidden at Kame House for as long as they could. Though, with there being so few power levels left on Earth, theirs would eventually be sensed, so King Piccolo kills them too. After all the humans are killed, the Earth would still be in a time of chaos, as King Piccolo's Demon Clan now has free reign over the Earth. For Piccolo Jr. to win, it must begin near the end of his match against Goku in the 23rd World Martial Arts Tournament. While he was lying in a crater, and the tournament announcer began to count to 10, everyone thought Goku had won. When the announcer got to 9, Piccolo then shot Goku through the chest with a mouth blast. Normally, this blast manages to miss Goku's vitals. This time, however, Piccolo manages to shoot Goku through the heart, killing him on the spot. He then announces that the Age of Demons and Terror has begun, as he sets his sights on the other heroes. The heroes in his plan if Goku fails for all of them to gang up on Piccolo. However, as Piccolo pointed out in the manga, even together they wouldn't stand a chance against him. Roshi also confirmed this was true, but they didn't have any other choice, so all the heroes would rush in at him. He likely starts with taking out the strongest first, so he would target Tien. Normally, he liked to torture people and make their deaths long and drawn out, but since all the heroes were attacking him at once, he would kill them swiftly. So, he would start off with killing Tien, as he then targets Krillin next. However, even Krillin would fall at the hands of the reincarnated Demon King. This is when the tournament announcer would flee, as he would be terrified of Piccolo. Anyway, Yamcha would give it his best as well, but he stands no chance against Piccolo, so he is killed too. Even Roshi tries to take him on, but Piccolo would be able to easily deflect his Kamehameha, as he then kills the Turtle Hermit. The angered Chi-Chi would then try her best, and she might catch him off guard at first. Since Goku was killed, she likely got a power boost from her anger. In the end, it wasn't enough to matter, as Piccolo kills her. Shotsu is the last one to try and fight him, as he uses his telekinesis, but Piccolo easily breaks out of this, so he then blasts and kills Shotsu. The only heroes left in this time were Poir, Oolong, Bulma, and Launch. Instead of picking them off one by one, Piccolo would just kill them all with one large blast. With the heroes now dead, Kami would stop standing idly by and try to attack Piccolo again. Though, since Piccolo's seen the evil containment wave used earlier, he would likely be able to mimic it. Also, since the jar was still on the ground after Kami was freed from it, Piccolo would seal Kami away inside of it again. As he went to bury the jar, he would sense another nearby power level, which, this is when he would discover Yajirobe, who was trying to hide from him. Though he wouldn't stand a chance against Piccolo, so he is killed easily too. Now that the heroes are killed, he would go back to burying the jar containing Kami where no one would find it. As mentioned in the manga, he planned to restore King Piccolo's reign, so he would go to the king's castle and overthrow King Furry much like King Piccolo did. How he rules would be like how King Piccolo ruled, as he would plunge the world into a state of anarchy by disbanding all law enforcement agencies. Though, he would also cause the world to be in a state of terror, since from what we've seen in the manga, he seemed to enjoy torturing people more. He liked drawing out their demise, unlike King Piccolo who usually killed people swiftly. This means he wouldn't destroy a province of the world every year. Instead, he would draw the destruction of the earth so that he could have fun for longer. It's also likely Piccolo would make demons spawn of his own, so that he could start the reign of demons and terror like he promised. Together with his clan of demons, they would wreak havoc and spread terror across the earth. Since Piccolo doesn't have a fear of martial artists like King Piccolo did, he wouldn't target all of them right away. Instead, he might keep them around longer so that he has someone fun to toy with. Anyway, he also wouldn't need to make an example of anyone like King Piccolo wanted to with Tien, since everyone would have seen what happens if you take Piccolo on. As the massacre at the World Tournament is a good enough example for people, he would also keep training, so none of these martial artists would be able to end Piccolo's reign of terror. With the earth now plunged into a state of terror and anarchy, few people would rise to try and take on the new Demon King. For Garlic Jr. to win, the best place to start is at the beginning of the movie, when Ginger, Nikki, and Sancho were fighting Piccolo. The change is that when all three blast him, Garlic Jr. blasts him as well, so he is killed in this timeline instead of him surviving. But since Piccolo is dead, Kami dies as well, which causes the Dragon Balls to go inert. Garlic Jr. would notice this immediately, but he would likely know that he could make them active again once he takes on the role of Guardian. So, he would likely go on to continue collecting the Dragon Balls, as they would remember their locations from before they went inert. Meanwhile, Gohan was out doing his studies when he is then called in for dinner by Chi-Chi. However, they are interrupted by the Ox King, who is bringing presents for Gohan, though he is then suddenly attacked from behind by Ginger, so Chi-Chi steps in to protect her son. She's beaten easily as well, so Ginger still manages to kidnap Gohan. Then with Goku, he sensed something was wrong, so he ran back home. He arrived too late, however, as Chi-Chi tells him that Gohan was kidnapped for his Dragon Ball. The Dragon Ball and Gohan is delivered to Garlic Jr., which he notices a great power hidden within Gohan. So, he still decides to make him one of his disciples, as Gohan could be of a great use to him. Back with Goku, he has gone to Kame House to try and get the Dragon Radar from Bulma, though when they see that no Dragon Balls are showing up on it, they realize Kame was killed. So, Goku locates Garlic Jr. and the other side sensing their power levels, as he then takes off on the Flying Nimbus. The final 2 Dragon Balls are then delivered to Garlic Jr., though since they're still inert, they can't use them. Regardless, Goku then arrives at the mansion he wants his son back, so he gets into a fight with Ginger, Nikki, and Sancho. While he could beat any of them in a one-on-one fight, he isn't able to gain the advantage when all 3 are attacking him. This is when Krillin would arrive to help Goku, as he gets into a fight with Sancho. Normally, Piccolo would arrive at the same time as Krillin and help him against Sancho, but since he was killed already, he obviously can't do that. So Krillin is alone against Sancho, which he wouldn't stand a chance against Sancho, so Krillin is killed. Since Krillin is now dead, Sancho would go back to fighting Goku alongside Ginger and Nikki. With all 3 of Garlic Jr.'s henchmen fighting Goku, he doesn't get a chance to use his Kamehameha and kill them. When on a one-on-one fight with him, they can't do anything, and in a 2-on-1 fight with Goku, they can't do much. Then when it's a 3-on-1 fight, they would use all their blasts on Goku at the same time, which would likely kill him. With Goku now dead, and without Gohan having witnessed Goku getting hurt firsthand, he wouldn't have his moment of anger. Instead, once he finds out that Goku is dead, his reaction would be much more like his in the Saiyan saga, where he kept crying about him being dead. Regardless, Garlic Jr. and his henchmen would then take Gohan along with them as they went to the lookout. Once there, they would kill Mr. Popo since he would try and defend the lookout. With them having control over the lookout, Garlic Jr. was set to restoring the dragon and the Dragon Balls. In the process of doing so, he essentially becomes the next Guardian of Earth. From there, he would then summon Shenron and wish to make himself immortal. Afterwards, he would go and begin training Gohan to become his disciple. His training would likely be like Piccolo's since the major goal would be to make Gohan less of a crybaby. Though, Garlic Jr. will have a tougher time in training Gohan, since he also must work on turning him to the side of evil, since Gohan is good and wouldn't agree with his actions. Gohan is still a young boy currently, since he's only 4 at the most, so his thoughts could be easily persuaded to go one way or the other. It would just take time. Besides that, Garlic Jr. would find the black water mist that Kame hid inside of the lookout, so he would use it to turn everyone on Earth that has evil in their hearts into demon-like vampires. Though for the ones it didn't work on, Garlic Jr.'s henchmen would begin killing them, so that they achieve Garlic Jr.'s goal of wiping out anyone that doesn't obey him. This way, he's avenging his father as he promised to do so. So, all the remaining heroes would either be controlled by the black water mist or killed by Garlic Jr.'s henchmen. Anyway, while it would take a while for Gohan to be convinced to switch to Garlic Jr.'s side, without there being any of the heroes left to have a good influence on Gohan, this would eventually work. After Gohan is fully on the side of Garlic Jr., he'd likely be renamed to Sage. I only chose this name since it fits with the Spice theme and because of Sage's ties to demons, since some groups of people believe Sage wards away evil spirits. Regardless, after he is turned evil, he would join in terrorizing the Earth alongside Garlic Jr.'s henchmen. Also, assuming Garlic Jr.'s home planet, the Makio star, still gets close to the Earth, he'll likely gather the Spice Boys to join his forces, like he did in the Garlic Jr. saga. Also, with the Dragon Ball still around, they all might wish to be made immortal over the years, so none of Garlic Jr.'s clan of demons would be able to die. Regardless, now that Garlic Jr.'s goal of getting Gohan on their side is completed, he would join in terrorizing the remaining humans that weren't loyal to him, which he would be able to take any of them on without losing. Even if he was being beaten back somehow, he could still create the dead zone to pull in his enemies. However, it's not likely that he would have to resort to that. Eventually, he and the others would wipe out the remaining people that weren't loyal to him. This means that Garlic Jr. and his clan of demons would rule over the Earth along with the army of demon-like vampires. In the Dead Zone movie, he mentioned wanting to take over the universe, which, now that he's done on the planet Earth, he would start taking over different planets with the help of the Blackwater Mist and his demon clan. If he ever got into conflict with people like Frieza and King Cold, he would use the Dead Zone to pull in the Tyrants, thus trapping them forever. After this, since no one would be able to stand in their way, the universe would fall into a state of everlasting despair. This timeline starts with Raditz arriving in front of Piccolo. After Piccolo blasted him, and it does nothing to him, he was about to blast Piccolo in return. Normally, Raditz was interrupted by a scouter picking up another high power level. In this timeline, Raditz isn't interrupted by that, so he blasts Piccolo. Since Raditz wouldn't hold back, this would have killed Piccolo. Of course, this would kill Kami too, so the Dragon Balls become inactive. Regardless, Raditz's scouter then picked up on another big power level, so he started to fly towards it. Meanwhile, at Kame House, Goku would have just first arrive there with Gohan, their conversation goes essentially the same, until Bulma asks about the stone on Gohan's hat. Goku would be confused, as he would say it's a 4-star Dragon Ball, but this is when he realizes it turned into stone. Of course, this would freak them out, as it means something happened to Kami. However, they are then interrupted by the arrival of Raditz, which they would be much more cautious in this initial meeting. So, Krillin wouldn't be hit through the wall, as they would have kept their distance from Raditz. Regardless, Goku's true origins are revealed, but they also find out that Raditz killed Piccolo out in the wastelands. Anyway, Raditz would still try to get Goku to join him, but he refuses, so he kidnaps Gohan and tells him to kill 100 humans by tomorrow, or else he'll kill Gohan. He then flies off, which is when Goku, Krillin, and Roshi come up with their original plan of attacking Raditz together. Since Piccolo isn't alive to get in the way, they all head after Raditz, with Goku having to sense his power level to find them. When they arrived, they would prepare to fight Raditz together, but as Piccolo pointed out in the manga, Goku, Krillin, and Roshi would not stand a chance against Raditz. So, even in a 3-on-1 fight, Raditz is easily beating them all down. Eventually, he would decide to start picking them off, so he would use his double Sunday to kill both Krillin and Roshi. Of course, this would anger Goku, so he would start attacking Raditz out of desperation, though he would be beaten down easily, especially now that he is alone. For the sake of this timeline, so that Gohan doesn't intervene, I'm going to say that they're too far from Raditz's space pod for Gohan to see what is happening. So, after having gotten Goku on the ground, it would give him one last chance to join them. Of course, Goku refused to, so Raditz killed him as well. Now that Goku is dead, he would get in contact with Nappa and Vegeta, saying that Kakarot was killed, but he managed to take his son, so they'll have him on their side. He then goes to the space pod, but when he opens it, Gohan tries to flee. He easily stops Gohan by grabbing him by his tail and tells him that he will be trained by him now to become like a true Saiyan. His training of Gohan would be even more ruthless than Piccolo, since he would be teaching Gohan to become a ruthless warrior as well. So, while he would mainly beat up Gohan to make him stronger, he would also work on instilling the values of a Saiyan warrior into him. During this time of training Gohan, Raditz would also start eliminating the Earthlings, so that they could sell the planet. In the manga, Raditz mentioned that it would take about a month to get the Earth ready for selling, so a month would pass of him killing the Earthlings and training Gohan, until no more humans were left alive. By this time, Gohan still wouldn't be on Raditz's side, but he would have started going down that path, as Raditz probably forced him to kill some of the humans. Anyway, he then forces Gohan back into the space pod, as he gets in contact with Vegeta and Nappa. He tells them that the Earth is ready for selling and that they are on their way to their location, which it takes the two about a year to arrive on the planet Vegeta and Nappa are on. Once there, he would explain in detail about what happened on Earth, and how he took Gohan because of his high potential. Though, since they are trying to train him to be a Saiyan, and Gohan is an Earthling name, they would decide to give Gohan a Saiyan name, which they choose Satsu. Since Goku's family seemed to be named after root vegetables, I chose Gohan's Saiyan name based on the Japanese word for sweet potato. Regardless, now that the Saiyans are back together, they would go on to conquer the planet that Raditz mentioned in the manga that they needed a fourth Saiyan's help for. Of course, Satsu would be defeated a lot throughout the time of conquering this planet. However, because of his Saiyan blood, his power would grow faster each time. Also, not only would Raditz be training him in the ways of being a Saiyan, but Vegeta and Nappa would as well, though some of Satsu's mannerisms would influence them as well. They likely grow closer as a group and cooperate more in attacks, instead of just attacking alone. Kind of like how Gohan got Piccolo to stop being so much of a loner and got him to work with the other heroes, Satsu would get the Saiyans to work together. In between their battles on this planet, both the Saiyans and Satsu would tell stories about things that happened throughout their lives. Though, in Satsu's case, he might tell stories about what Goku did on Earth. So, eventually, he might have brought up the Dragon Balls in his stories, and how they are able to grant wishes. This would pique the Saiyans' interest, but they would also be cautious enough to take out their scouters, so that Frieza couldn't listen in on them, which Satsu would explain what he knew about them, which mainly is how many there were, how they can get any wish, and how they were tied to the life of Kami, and his life was tied to Piccolo's. He would explain how Piccolo was the green guy that Raditz killed, so it made the Earth Dragon Balls inert. Of course, that would likely anger Vegeta, but Raditz mentions that Piccolo looked like a Namekian, so there could be Dragon Balls on planet Namek. Before planning to get the Dragon Balls, they might plan to overthrow Frieza, since they would be tired of being under him. So, their main plan would be to continue conquering planets for Frieza, while using the Zenkai boost to their advantage. They would also train as well, so that their power would grow exponentially. Satsu would likely teach them things like suppressing their power and how to sense power levels without their scouter. It's likely the Saiyans heard rumors of Frieza having a power level of over 500,000, though they also likely heard the rumor that Frieza can transform. They likely don't know about anything past Frieza's second form, so they probably only know about Frieza having a form with a power level over 1 million. This would cause them to continue the process of using Zenkai boosts to make their power levels above 1 million, just to be safe. which this would be easier to hide after they learned how to suppress their powers, but it would also take them years to do so. It's hard to give a guess on how many years this could take, but I decided that I'd say it would take about 12 years, so they would reach the level of strength they wanted around the time that the Buu saga would have happened. I put Vegeta's power level at about 3 million, Nappa's at 1,800,000, Raditz is at 1,200,000, and Satsu's at 900,000. By the time they decided to challenge Frieza, there would have been a noticeable increase in their power levels, even when suppressed, so they likely would have been doing missions with the Ginyu Force. The day they decided to rebel against Frieza, the 4 of them would attack the Ginyu Force. Vegeta would take on Captain Ginyu, which he wouldn't stand a chance against the Saiyan Prince. It's likely that Vegeta would kill him before he could use his body-changing technique. As for Nappa, he would take on Recoome, though he would finish him off quickly with his Bomber DX. Raditz would fight both Burter and Jace, as he would take them out with his Double Sundae. Lastly, Satsu would kill Goldo by using the Double Sundae as well, since he was taught it by Raditz. When Frieza eventually notices that the Ginyu Force has gone missing, and the Saiyan starts returning to him, it wouldn't take him long to figure out what was going on. So, Frieza would head to the Saiyans' location himself, since if they can take out Captain Ginyu, no one else in his army can stand up to them. Together, the Saiyans have a power level of 6,900,000, while Firstborn Frieza has a power level of 530,000. Since the Saiyans would be fighting Frieza together, he wouldn't be able to get any hits on them. However, with them being cocky, they would likely taunt him to transform. Frieza would comply and turn into his second form. While this would put his power level above Satsu's, he would still be weaker than the other 3. So, he's still getting pummeled, but he would taunt the Saiyans by saying he has 2 more transformations. Of course, they would allow him to transform again. His third form would put him between Raditz and Nappa in power. The Tyrant would be shocked that he was still getting beaten down in this form, so he would finally go into his final form. Initially, he was only using about 2% of his power, which makes him stronger than all the Saiyans individually, but when they fight together, he can't get many hits in. It's what caused him to start using 10% of his power, which puts him above all the Saiyans. At this point, he would start to toy around with them. When he starts to target Satsu, Raditz would get in the way to try and defend his nephew, but to no avail. Though, Frieza being preoccupied with these two gives Vegeta the chance to make the artificial moon. All the Saiyans would look at it and become great apes, so Vegeta's power level is now 30 million, Nappa's is 18 million, Raditz's is 12 million, and Satsu's is 9 million, so they have a combined power level of 69 million. The Saiyans would not hold back from pummeling Frieza together, so the Tyrant would be stomped into the ground by them. Anytime he thinks he gets an opening to get away, another one sends him crashing into the ground. Over time, he would start to use more of his power. However, this beating would also be wearing him out, so his power level would be dropping. When he goes into his full power form, he would actually be fighting at about 60% of his full power, so his power level would be 72 million. This would make it a close fight with the Saiyans, but Frieza would have a slight advantage. They would be trading blows with each other, but Frieza would eventually target their tails with his death beams. He starts with Nappa and Vegeta, so they revert to their base forms. He then repeats the process with Raditz and Satsu, so all the Saiyans are back in their base form. Since Frieza would be back on top now, he would be toying with them, though he would also decide to start picking them off one by one, since this has gone on long enough. Since he's seen Raditz try to protect Satsu earlier, he would start with Satsu. He raises him into the air like he did with Krillin, as he then causes him to explode. Over the last 12 years, all the Saiyans got close with Satsu, but Raditz especially. They were still treated as low-class Saiyans, even though they did get somewhat closer with Vegeta and Nappa. So, Raditz would have grown closer with his nephew, and potentially became like a father to the boy. So, when he sees his nephew die right before his very eyes, he would be angry, to say the least. As his head starts jerking back, lightning starts to strike the ground around them. The ground would start crumbling at Raditz's feet, as his hair flickers between black and yellow. And as the lightning strikes get closer, he lets out a yell. As his hair spikes up and fully turns yellow, he would then turn his gaze towards Frieza, as the Tyrant was worried about if this was the Super Saiyan of legend. With Vegeta and Nappa, they would be in disbelief that a low-class Saiyan like Raditz was able to become the Super Saiyan. Anyway, this would bring Raditz's power level up to 60 million. With the beating Frieza received, his power would have dropped to 60 million. Also, because of the stamina drain in his full power form, his power level would still be dropping. So, when Raditz starts to knock the Tyrant around, the fight would start even at first. They would be going blow for blow with each other, but the longer the fight goes on, the weaker Frieza gets. The Raditz is also a more cautious Saiyan, so the moment he gets to finish off Frieza, he would take that chance. He would likely use his Double Sundae against Frieza and vaporize the Tyrant with it. Of course, he didn't drop to his base form since his body couldn't handle the strain of Super Saiyan forever. Since Frieza was now defeated, the Saiyans would gather Satsu's body, as they had a plan. Now that they knew about the Dragon Balls, they would head to planet Namek to revive Satsu. Which, since they also know that the Dragon Balls would be tied to the lives of one of the Namekians, they would be cautious in killing any of them. Instead, they would torture the information they need to summon the dragon out of them. It's hard to say if the Namekians would give this information up, but I think they would crack eventually and summon the dragon for the Saiyans. They didn't use the wish to revive Satsu, so they grew close to him. The other wish would be used to make the 4 of them immortal, though for the 3rd wish, they didn't have anything in mind for it, so they dismissed Purunga. Also, now that Frieza is dead, this likely would have caught the attention of King Cold. He would have been searching for the Saiyans, and they would likely realize this, but they don't know how strong he is, they just figure he's stronger than Frieza, so they would likely stay hidden from them while they train in preparation to fight him. Throughout this training, the others would have been trying to access the Super Saiyan transformation. Satsu would be the second one to unlock the Super Saiyan form since he was already being trained to tap into his anger. The third person to get it would be Vegeta, as he unlocked it out of anger since 2 low-class Saiyans got it before him. Lastly, Nappa would unlock the Super Saiyan form out of anger as well that he was being surpassed by someone like Raditz. Regardless, after they finish unlocking this form, they would go and confront King Cold. Since Vegeta didn't get the pleasure of killing Frieza, he would step up to take on King Cold himself. Because of their training, in combination with the Super Saiyan form, he would be strong enough to take on King Cold alone. Their fight would be over fast since he would be pummeling the Tyrant easily. Before he is killed, he'll likely offer planets to Vegeta in exchange for his life. However, he refuses, as he then blasts King Cold with a Galactic gun and kills him. With the Tyrants all dead, the Saiyans would take over the Empire, with Vegeta crowning himself as the monarch. From then on, the Saiyans would continue conquering planets for fun, and to grow the Empire. They might put out a universe-wide broadcast for any surviving Saiyans to come join them. We don't know if there were any other surviving Saiyans besides Broly, Paragus, and Tarble, but assuming that there is, they would come and join up with Vegeta and the others. This would allow them to slowly rebuild the Saiyan race over time. Speaking of Broly, they might eventually discover him on planet Vampa. Of course, Paragus would try to get Broly to attack Vegeta, but with the Saiyans having immortality, they would continuously grow stronger in the fight with Broly. It would basically be useless for them to fight since all of them grow stronger, and without them killing Paragus, they might get the advantage over Broly and defeat him, since they would have the Super Saiyan form while Broly doesn't. After winning the fight, they might be able to talk Paragus down from his revenge plan, as Vegeta had no choice in his father's actions. So, while Paragus is reluctant to do so, Paragus and Broly would join up with the others, since it gets them off planet Vampa. Now that these Saiyans join them, they might use the Namekian Dragon Balls to make them immortal too. Also, speaking of the Super Saiyan forms, it's likely that they would teach Broly how to become a Super Saiyan and that they would learn how to surpass these forms eventually. Of course, they would unlock Super Saiyan 2 first, as they would have sensed there was something beyond Super Saiyan after they mastered it. Because of their immortal bodies, they also would have been able to push this even further by unlocking the Super Saiyan 3 form, since the stamina drain wouldn't be too much of an issue. Lastly, they would likely tap into their more primal side and unlock the Super Saiyan 4 transformation. Regardless, with the power of these forms in combination with their immortal bodies, they would make the Saiyan Empire. With King Vegeta leading them and the Tyrants gone, he becomes the next Emperor of the universe. This was kind of a joke chapter I wanted to include, with it being about a timeline where Raditz betrays Vegeta. It was also based on the concept of Raditz managing to become a Super Saiyan on Earth, which, it would have been a long shot for Raditz to do so, but like I mentioned before, some of these stories are meant to be wacky on purpose. Regardless, we open on Earth, as Gohan has just hit Raditz in the chest with his headbutt. Of course, this injures Raditz. It gives Goku the opportunity to grab him from behind. Though, this is also the moment where Raditz's anger could come out. All his life, he has been beaten down by the Saiyans above him. Now, he's being beaten down by a Saiyan beneath him, and a child just managed to injure him. With his life about to end, combined with his anger towards the heroes and other Saiyans, he might start to transform. As lightning starts striking around him, and the ground starts crumbling at his and Goku's feet, his head starts to jerk back. His hair would be flashing between black and yellow. At the same time he lets out a scream and is surrounded by a bright light. Piccolo finished charging the special beam cannon and fired it at him, though when the smoke cleared, Raditz would still be standing, though his armor was damaged even more from this. His hair is also solid yellow now, as he has unlocked the Super Saiyan transformation. According to an information card that was released alongside the DVS Broly movie, Raditz's full power was 1600. So, as a Super Saiyan, his power level would be 80,000. This means that the heroes wouldn't stand a chance against him now, as he easily breaks free from Goku's grip. He would then fly towards Piccolo and blast him through the chest at point blank range, killing him. After Piccolo falls to the ground, he turns his attention to Goku, who is still lying on the ground since his ribs were broken at the time. Raditz would start to pummel Goku around at first, though he would soon get bored and finish him off too. After seeing Goku die, Gohan likely gets another rage boost and tries to attack Raditz, but he couldn't do anything against him this time. Instead, Raditz would swiftly kill him as well, which leaves him as the last one standing. though he then reverts his base form and collapses to the ground from the strain of the form in combination with his injuries. However, Roshi, Krillin, and Bulma would then arrive in their airplane. While he would be weakened at this time, Raditz would be able to rise to his feet as he prepares to take on Roshi and Krillin. Together, they would be able to put up a somewhat good fight, but they can't do a lot of damage to the Saiyan. So, he would finish them both off with his double Sunday, though he collapses again after they're killed. During his fight with the heroes, Vegeta and Nappa likely would have been listening to how things went down. Assuming Raditz said something about the Super Saiyan, since that's what he would have figured the transformation was, Vegeta would have been in disbelief about this. He would have wanted to see this for himself, mainly just to put Raditz back into his place, but there's no way a low-class Saiyan like Raditz became the Super Saiyan of legend. Anyway, Vegeta and Nappa would inform him how they're on their way to Earth. With how Raditz was treated by them before, it likely wouldn't take him long to figure out what Vegeta plans to do. Though before he could start the training preparation for Vegeta's arrival, he would have to heal from his injuries first. After he did heal, he only decided to train so that he could unlock the Super Saiyan form again. In between his training, he would also hunt down the Earthlings, so that the planet was ready to be sold to Frieza. It's hard to say how strong Raditz could get through training in a year, but if his training was as intense as Goku's under King Kai's, his power level would rise to about 30,000. He would likely be able to tap into the Super Saiyan form again by the time Vegeta and Nappa arrive on Earth. When they use their Scouters, they would only see one power level, but the Scouters would explode around the time they reach the 22,000 mark. Though, the two would likely think it was a malfunction, so they took off towards where the Scouters sensed the power level. Raditz would be waiting for them, as his Scouter wouldn't explode when reading their power levels. Once they arrive, Vegeta would likely taunt Raditz into showing his Super Saiyan form, so he complies. Of course, seeing this form would shock Vegeta, but he would still be cocky enough to believe he can beat Raditz, though in this form, it boosts Raditz's power level to 1,500,000. Anyway, when the two Saiyans charged at him, Raditz would easily start pummeling them into the ground. However, Raditz is also more of a cautious Saiyan than the others, so he wouldn't give Vegeta the chance to make his artificial moon. Instead, he would use his double Sunday against them, which would easily take out the two Saiyans at once. From there, Raditz would have to worry about the threat of dealing with Frieza eventually. It's likely Frieza would have planned to get rid of Raditz, so instead of him going back to serve Frieza, he might go AWOL like how Vegeta did. Of course, Frieza would likely track him down and have his henchmen fight the Saiyan. None of them would stand a chance, not even the Ginyu Force, since he can turn into his Super Saiyan. Then when Frieza confronted him, Raditz would stand his ground against the Galactic Emperor. Since Raditz is cautious, he wouldn't hesitate to go into his Super Saiyan form, as he begins knocking Frieza around. Even though he likely would have heard the rumor about Frieza being able to transform, he wouldn't give Frieza the chance to do so. Instead, he would fight the Tyrant for a while until he was weakened enough that when he blasts him with the Shining Friday, it vaporizes the Tyrant. With Frieza gone, he could take over the Empire, but King Cold would still be out there as a threat. However, Raditz would have to train even more to have a chance to take on the Tyrant, so he wouldn't take over the Empire right away. Instead, he would bide his time and go around the universe avoiding King Cold, while he trains to take him on. This means that King Cold would have taken over the Empire after Frieza died, while he also searched for Raditz. Eventually, when Raditz was strong enough to take down Cold, he would stop trying to hide so that he could be found. King Cold wouldn't miss the opportunity to avenge his son, so he goes and confronts Raditz. So after he turns into his Super Saiyan form, he would be able to kill Cold as well. He would then take over the Empire, and with him as the ruler, he wouldn't be nearly as ruthless as Frieza was, though he would still conquer planets, just so he could have the thrill of fighting. This would also expand his empire. I don't think he'd try to restore the Saiyan race like Vegeta would have if he became king. However, if he did happen to cross any remaining Saiyans, he would let them join his empire too. So, he might end up having a family of his own with one of the remaining Saiyans. Anyway, it's not likely he would ever face any other major threats, but since he is cautious, he wouldn't slack on his training in any way. Eventually, he would likely even transcend the Super Saiyan form into Super Saiyan 2, but since he doesn't have an immortal body this time, I'll leave it up to your interpretation on if he goes further into the Super Saiyan 3 or Super Saiyan 4 forms. Regardless, with him now being the Emperor of the Universe, he would continue to grow and expand his empire. For Vegeta to win. The first change would happen right after Vegeta and Nappa learned about the Dragon Balls. Instead of discussing their plans right away, Vegeta would likely be cautious enough to have them take off their Scouters so Frieza can't overhear them. They then discuss their plans about using them to wish for immortality. The fight with the heroes then goes the same, up until the point that Nappa was about to stomp on and crush Gohan. Instead of Goku saving Gohan, he's a couple seconds too late, so Gohan is crushed and killed. Now, it could go either way on if this would be enough to cause Goku to go Super Saiyan, but for the sake of this timeline, I'm going to say it would wouldn't be enough, though he would still get a boost in his power from the rage caused by seeing his son dead. Regardless, his fight with Nappa would go basically the same, but since he killed his son, he wouldn't go easy on him. So, when he eventually uses the Kaioken to stop Nappa from attacking Krillin, he would kill him instead of just paralyzing him. Goku then convinces Krillin to leave, as he leaves Vegeta somewhere else so that the heroes' bodies aren't harmed in the fight. After changing location, their fight goes the same up until Krillin returns. Since he is alone this time, without Gohan to get his attention, Krillin just tries to use the Destructo Disc against Vegeta while he was paying attention to Goku, but he still jumps above it. The Yajirobe then cuts off his tail, so he reverts to his base form. As usual, he then pummels Krillin and knocks him away. Afterwards, he goes to Goku and starts stomping and kicking him. With Gohan not there to stop him, and Krillin too far away to reach him in time, Vegeta would eventually kill Goku by stomping on his chest and crushing his heart. He then turns his attention to Krillin, as he starts to knock him around. He also unleashes a volley of energy blast on him, which he can't do much to resist. As he went to finish off Krillin, Yajirobe still came behind Vegeta and used his sword to slice his back. However, since Vegeta has more energy left, he would kick Yajirobe away. He then punches Yajirobe repeatedly, though he soon gets tired of this and kills him. Finally, he turns his attention back to Krillin, who can't even get up anymore. While he would start knocking Krillin around at first, he would soon decide to finish him off with a Ki Blast. Now that he has won, he collapses to the ground, as he uses the remote control to bring his space pod there. He then crawls and gets into it, as he then uses it to fly away. However, he briefly stops the pod above the Earth, as he decides to destroy the Earth like he swore to. So, he uses the last of his energy to use a Gallic gun, which destroys the Earth. After closing the pod, he sets the destination for Frieza Planet 79, and then passes out. Once he arrives there, he is put into a healing pod, and after he is healed, he exits the pod and is given new armor, since his old armor was destroyed. As usual, he got a Zenkai boost which brought his power level up to 24,000, though with him having been cautious enough to take off the Scouter when talking about the Dragon Balls, Frieza wouldn't be on his way to Namek. So, this allows Vegeta to plot his revenge against Frieza and train over time. Normally, Vegeta isn't the one to train like this, but he would have heard rumors about Frieza's power level being over 500,000. He also would have heard rumors about Frieza having a transformation with a power level of about 1 million. This in combination with his near defeat on Earth convinces him to train in preparation for fighting Frieza. Since he is slightly more cautious now, he would scout out the power levels on Namek before heading there, since one of the power levels there is higher than his, and his tail hasn't regrown yet to allow him to transform into a great ape. He would train until his power level was higher than the highest power level on Namek. He then heads to Namek so that he could get his wish for immortality. In the manga, we had seen how he would raid the Namekian villages. During these raids, he would kill some of the Namekians, then demand a Dragon Ball. Of course, the village elders refused, so he kept repeating this process until the village elder was the only one left. Even then, the village elder still refused, since Vegeta was evil, so he killed the elder and then searched the ruins of the village for the Dragon Ball. After finding the Dragon Ball, he would then take off towards the next village. By now, he also learned how to sense energy without the Scouter, so he wouldn't need his to find the villages. Anyway, he repeats this process for the next 5 villages, as none of them willingly give up their Dragon Ball. After having 6 of the 7 Dragon Balls, he would only sense 2 power levels left on Namek, which one was the highest one on the planet. Of course, when he lands outside of Guru's house, Nail would come out to confront him, but since Vegeta trained in preparation to fight Nail, he would be able to kill the warrior. He then enters Guru's house and demands a Dragon Ball, though he wouldn't give it to him willingly either. Even when Vegeta tries resorting to violence, it doesn't work, so he then kills Guru. This is where he messes up, though, since this causes the Dragon Balls to turn to stone. It wouldn't take him long to figure out that the Dragon Balls were tied to the life of the Namekian he just killed. Out of frustration, he would then destroy planet Namek after he started to leave. Since he can no longer obtain immortality, he would have to go back to training so he could take on Frieza. He would still do missions for the Tyrant, but he would suppress his power level so the Emperor couldn't realize how strong he was getting. Also, he would exploit the Zenkai boost so that he could get above Frieza in power. Basically, he would allow himself to get to near death before then getting healed to boost his power. This leads to Frieza letting his guard down, as he thinks Vegeta is getting weaker with how many times he comes back near death now. By the time he gets his power level to above the rumored power of Frieza's transformation, he would have regrown his tail as well. I'm going to say he has a power level of about 1,500,000, so as a grade 8, his power level would be 15 million. When he starts his betrayal, he would start taking out some of Frieza's henchmen when he was on missions with them, though he would stage it as them being killed by the inhabitants of that planet. He would start with Kui, just so he didn't have to deal with him anymore. He would take out Zarbon and Dodoria next. Eventually, he would start taking out the Ginyu Force, but then picking them off one by one. Though by now Frieza would be growing suspicious of him, so he eventually decides to end the prince himself. During their fight, Frieza would not be able to land a hit on Vegeta while in his first form. Vegeta would be pummeling the Tyrant, but when Frieza eventually got the chance to transform, he turned into his second form. Of course, Vegeta would still be beating Frieza down, but the Tyrant would be able to get some hits on Vegeta this time. Frieza would then tell the Saiyan that he has 2 more transformations, so Vegeta would let him go into his third form. They would be close in power now, with Frieza having the slight advantage, so they are going blow for blow with each other. Of course, this would push Vegeta into going into his grade 8 form, as he then starts to pummel the Tyrant again. Frieza would try to convince Vegeta to let him transform into his final form, but Vegeta would have gotten bored of this fight by now, since none of his previous transformations changed the course of the battle. So, he wouldn't give Frieza the chance to transform, as he didn't use his mouth blast to vaporize the Galactic Emperor. With Frieza now dead, Vegeta has two options: take over Frieza's empire, or dismantle his empire. To differentiate this timeline from other chapters, I decided to go with the option of him dismantling Frieza's empire. However, he would go into hiding while doing this, so that he could avoid King Cold. He would likely have heard rumors about how strong the old monarch is, so he would go back to exploiting the Zenkai boost while destroying the empire, which was renamed to the Cold Empire. He would go planet by planet, exploit the Zenkai boost as much as he could on one planet, then take out the inhabitants to lead to the next planet. King Cold would try being on his trail, but with Vegeta being able to suppress his power, the old monarch wouldn't find him. It would take many years to push his power level above King Cold's, especially since he doesn't know how to turn into a Super Saiyan. Though for the sake of this timeline, I'm going to say he manages to do so eventually. After he does, he would stay on the most recent planet he wiped out on purpose, so that King Cold does find him. Vegeta would turn into a grade 8 from the start, and when they start to fight, it would likely be a long and drawn out fight, since they would be close in power. As it goes on, both of their power levels would start dropping, but Vegeta always has a slight advantage. Eventually, after weakening the Tyrant enough, he would take out King Cold in a similar way to how he took out Frieza. Now that King Cold is dead, there will likely be a power struggle in the remnants of the Cold Empire to decide who takes over. It doesn't matter who does take over, though, as Vegeta would continue to dismantle the Empire planet by planet. While it would take a while, he would eventually wipe out all the planets within the Empire, along with all the people that were part of it. Now that he is completely free from the Empire, he wouldn't start an empire of his own. Instead, he would search the universe for a new planet that would be suitable to become his new home planet. After he finds a planet he likes, he would settle there and use the old Empire's technology to make a universe-wide broadcast for any Saiyans left to come to that planet, on the orders of King Vegeta IV. As mentioned before, it's hard to say if there are any Saiyans left to hear this broadcast, but I'm going to say there is. Together with these Saiyans, they would mold the planet into being the new Saiyan home planet. Of course, it would take years upon years, but the Saiyan race would start to reappear. Vegeta would likely get a spouse of his own eventually and have a family of his own with her. This means that he would eventually have the monarchy passed down to his children after he is gone. Also, as a new king of the Saiyans, he would also ensure that the old history of the Saiyans was recorded, or what he remembers of it, at least. With him managing to take down the Tyrants and restart the Saiyan race, he would go down in Saiyan history as one of the best monarchs they ever had. Regardless, he would never try to start an empire like Cold and Frieza did. They would become more isolationist. To satisfy their desire for fighting, they would just hold tournaments and contests to have friendly fights amongst themselves. This way, they don't risk the Saiyan race being decimated again. It would likely take them a while for them to get used to not conquering other planets anymore. However, their lives would also become less stressful, so they wouldn't have to worry about a galactic tyrant watching everything they do. Anyway, under his rule, the new Saiyan home planet becomes prosperous, with every Saiyan being fully loyal to him. This is another joke chapter like the Raditz one, but this time it would be about Nappa becoming a Super Saiyan and going against Vegeta. Like with the previous chapter, the first change would be that they took off their scouters so Frieza couldn't overhear their plans. Other than that, their fight would go the same way it normally does up until Goku paralyzed Nappa. He still injures Nappa, but this time, he isn't paralyzed and can still stand up, but only barely, though he would still try to ask Vegeta for help, but the Saiyan Prince still tried throwing him into the air to kill him. However, Goku uses his Kaioken to be able to get Nappa out of the way. With Nappa and Goku back on the ground, Nappa would be shocked at first about what just happened, though after it starts to sink in that Vegeta betrayed him, his shock would begin to turn to anger. As lightning strikes around Nappa, both Goku and Vegeta would be confused about what was happening. The lightning strikes would get closer while the ground started to crumble at his feet, and he began to shake from rage. His head would begin jerking back, while his facial hair flashed from black to yellow. Eventually, he lets out a scream as his facial hair is now solid yellow and his eyes are a piercing blue. As his power level was about 7,500 in his base form, he would have a power level of 375,000 as a Super Saiyan. Regardless, he turned his attention towards Vegeta as he rushes the Saiyan Prince. Vegeta wouldn't stand a chance, as he starts to get pummeled by the Saiyan Brute for betraying him. It's likely Vegeta would eventually make the artificial moon, so he turns into a great ape. Nappa could transform as well, but since he isn't looking at the moon, he wouldn't do so. Of course, Gohan could likely transform too, but Goku would stop him from looking at the moon. Anyway, even when transformed, Vegeta's attacks do nothing against Nappa. He starts to get beaten around, but Nappa wouldn't relent his assault against Vegeta, though he eventually goes to finish him off, as he charges Vegeta and punches a hole through his chest, killing the Saiyan Prince. With Vegeta now dead, the heroes don't have any chance of being able to defeat Nappa. Of course, Goku would step up first to take on Nappa, but his attacks do nothing. Even when he starts to use the Kaioken ×4, his attacks do nothing. So, he just ends up destroying his body for no reason, as he collapses to the ground in pain. That's when he might telepathically tell Gohan to look at the full moon, as it would be their best chance. Gohan would turn into a great ape, but his power wouldn't do much against Nappa either. While Nappa was briefly distracted, Goku might use his chance to make a Spirit Bomb. Since Nappa would be toying with Gohan, the Spirit Bomb would catch him off guard and injure him even more. Though even when he isn't at full power, he would still be able to beat the heroes. Regardless, now that Goku used the last of his energy, he collapses to the ground, since he is unable to move. Back with Nappa and Gohan, he would use his Break Cannon against Gohan, which would shoot through him, killing the young boy. Krillin was the only one left standing, so Nappa would start to pummel him into the ground. And while he was doing this, Yajirobe would come out of hiding and use his sword to slash Nappa across the back. While it does momentarily distract him, it just causes him to use his Bomber DX against Yajirobe, killing him. He would go back to toying with Krillin afterwards, but even then, he would get bored and eventually use the Volcano Explosion to kill Krillin. Lastly, he then uses his Break Cannon to kill Goku as well. As Nappa collapses to the ground, he reverts to his base form and uses the remote control to call his Saiyan Pod. After he gets in it and starts to leave, he destroys the Earth like Vegeta did in the last chapter. Nappa would then go to Frieza Planet 79 and be put into a healing pod. Now, Nappa usually isn't the one to think things through, but since his next target would be Frieza, he takes the final advice Vegeta gave him into consideration, which was to use his head. So, instead of just rushing in to fight Frieza, he would decide to bide his time and train. He would also have to keep the Super Saiyan form and his power level hidden, so Frieza doesn't realize how strong he has gotten. Speaking about strength, he would have gotten a Zenkai boost after fighting the Earthlings, so his power level is now about 10,000 in his base form. To beat Frieza, it would take him years upon years of training. Since to match Frieza in his final form, his power level would have to be at least 2,400,000 in his base form, which would make his power level 120 million as a Super Saiyan. But depending on how intensely he trains, he would be able to achieve it faster than he thought he would. Regardless, he would start with taking out Frieza's henchmen. It would be less secretive about it, as he doesn't make it look like they died on missions. Instead, he openly rebels against Frieza, as he starts off with killing Qui. He then goes on to kill Zarbon and Dodoria, since Frieza likely would have sent them to search for him. Next, he would kill the Ginyu Force, since they would have been the next group Frieza dispatched. As a last resort, Frieza himself goes to confront the Saiyan Brute, but while in his base form, Nappa would still be able to beat down first form Frieza. With Nappa fighting in a more brutal manner than the others, he would direct his attacks to try and injure Frieza. So, he might end up breaking one of his arms or cutting off part of his arm like how he did to Tien. Regardless, Frieza would be pushed into his second form, but even then, he couldn't do anything. Even the Tyrant's third form would be beneath Nappa's base form in terms of strength. However, once he goes into his final form, he would gain the upper hand. Though, Nappa wouldn't hesitate to turn into his Super Saiyan form, so he starts to beat the Emperor down again. Frieza would try using his full power, but with some of the injuries he received from Nappa earlier, like a broken arm, his power level wouldn't be the full 120 million. Since Nappa is a brute, he would toy around with Frieza to make the Tyrant feel the fear he made others feel. But Frieza wouldn't get the chance to throw any attacks in, as the brute continues to pummel him into the ground. Nappa would eventually get bored, as he then uses his Break Cannon to vaporize the Tyrant. With Frieza now dead, there is still King Cold to worry about, so he would become Nappa's next target. He would still train in preparation to face the old Tyrant, so that when he eventually confronts him, King Cold can't do much. After Nappa turned into his Super Saiyan form again, he would easily be able to kill King Cold, though he would draw it out like he did against Frieza to make him feel fear. Regardless, he eventually kills King Cold, and then takes control of the Empire. Ruling an empire isn't for Nappa, so he'd likely delegate his executive duties to others, but he still gets the final say on what they do. Instead, he'd mainly focus on the battles, as he lives for fighting. So, anytime his men go out to conquer planets and expand his empire, he would be there beside them. Like with Vegeta, he would also try to rebuild the Saiyan race, so any remaining Saiyans they find would be allowed to join his empire. This also means that Nappa might have a family of his own eventually. Regardless, with him as the Emperor, he would spread fear across the universe because of the brutal methods he used during his conquests. While this isn't a joke chapter, I wanted to do a bonus chapter on what I think would have happened if Vegeta became immortal on Namek. The easiest way for this to happen is just by having Guru live slightly longer than normal. Dende was about to make the wish for Vegeta to be made immortal, but Guru died before he could. This time, he makes the wish for Vegeta to become immortal. Then when the Dragon Balls begin to scatter, this is when they turn to stone and fall to the ground, as Guru has now died. Regardless, Vegeta's fight with Frieza would start the same way, as Vegeta catches his fists. After a brief power struggle, Vegeta taunts Frieza to transform, so the Tyrant complies. He then blows off his armor as he begins to transform. After turning into his second form, he would decide to target Vegeta first instead of Krillin. He only decided to do this since he was angry with Vegeta for stealing his wish for immortality and taking it for himself. So, like he did to Krillin, he charges at Vegeta and uses one of his horns to stab him through the chest. Frieza then throws him from his horn and into the nearby water. Gohan and Krillin then prepared to take on Frieza, but Vegeta then rose out of the water. They see the hole in his chest heal, as his power level rises as well. We don't know how a Saiyan's body works while immortal, but I think they would still get Zenkai boosts from their near-death experiences. So, when Vegeta was stabbed through the chest, and his immortality healed him, his power level rose. However, since Frieza doesn't have a scouter anymore, he wouldn't realize at first that Vegeta's power level was rising. Regardless, when Vegeta then attacks Frieza, his power level is still nowhere near the Tyrants. So, Frieza would start to brutally pummel Vegeta like he did to Gohan in the actual manga. Then when Piccolo arrives, he wouldn't save Vegeta like how he rescued Gohan, so he would be stomping on Vegeta's head, crushing it. We don't know the limits of immortality's regeneration, so I'm going to say that unless the whole body is destroyed, it can be regenerated. It would be like how Cell was able to regenerate, only if his entire body wasn't vaporized. With Vegeta seemingly defeated, Frieza would start toying around with both Krillin and Gohan. He would toy around with the two, but this is when Piccolo would step in. His fight with Frieza goes the same way as in the manga, with him forcing Frieza to transform into his third form. By the time he finishes transforming, Vegeta has recovered by this time, so he attacks Frieza, which shocks the Tyrant. Though even now, Frieza still has the upper hand, so he unleashes a volley of death beams on Vegeta like how he did to Piccolo. This causes the Saiyan Prince to fall to the ground once again, as he now has multiple holes in his body. Piccolo would then resume his fight with Frieza, but the Tyrant starts knocking him around. As he was toying with Piccolo, Gohan was getting angrier, so he tried attacking him. Though his blast is sent back by Frieza, but Piccolo knocks it away, so he doesn't hit the young boy. Frieza then decides to show off his final form, but by this time, Vegeta had recovered once more. This is when he puts his idea from earlier into action, so that he could raise his power level even more. He would get Krillin to shoot him through the chest to cause him to become near death, so Krillin complies. His body starts to heal itself once again, but in the meantime, Dende healed Piccolo. Frieza saw this, so after he finished turning into his final form, he used a death beam to kill Dende. Regardless, Vegeta then recovered and tried attacking Frieza once again, as he put his full power into a blast. The Tyrant reflected it easily, so it hit Vegeta, but Frieza didn't let up there. He starts to knock him around, and when he goes to stab through his chest with his hand, he does so. Goku then arrives, and their fight begins the same as usual, with him deflecting off Frieza's death beams. Vegeta then said something about Goku being a Super Saiyan legend, so Frieza shot him through the head with a death beam. Goku's fight with Frieza would then go the same, up until Goku was using the Kaioken times 20 against Frieza. After Goku collapses from the strain, Vegeta would have gotten up and kicked Frieza away. With all the times Vegeta has gotten near death now and recovered, he would essentially be matching Frieza, who is using half of his full power. Of course, Vegeta would be aggravating Frieza to no end, so the Tyrant would use his Death Ball to try and take out Vegeta and the planet as well. While Vegeta was fighting with Frieza, Goku would have been in the background trying to charge the Spirit Bomb. Anyway, Vegeta would purposely take the brunt of the Death Ball as he struggles to send it back at Frieza. After he takes most of the attack, it dissipates before it could harm planet Namek. Though once the smoke clears, Vegeta would still be floating there, though he's in rough shape. Most of his body would have been destroyed, like how the final Flash destroyed a lot of Cell's body. Since Vegeta fell to the ground again, Frieza turned his attention back to Goku as he started pummeling the Saiyan around. Since Goku was still charging the Spirit Bomb, he wasn't fighting back as much. Piccolo would then try and stall Frieza, but his attacks don't do anything either. Gohan and Krillin would join in on distracting Frieza by blasting him with what little energy they had left. However, Goku didn't finish the Spirit Bomb, so he launched it at Frieza. As usual, it seemingly kills Frieza, so the heroes begin to celebrate their victory. Instead of discussing going home, they would start discussing what to do with Vegeta, since he has immortality now. They are then interrupted by Frieza appearing, as he shoots Piccolo through the chest with a death beam. He then caused Krillin to rise into the air, but before he could make him explode, he was kicked in the head. After getting up, he sees Vegeta, who is now fully recovered. With the beating he just took, his most recent Zenkai put him far above Frieza in power, so he would start to pummel the Tyrant easily, much to the shock of everyone. Since their fight would drag on for a while, Frieza would be forced to go into his full power state, but because of how much of a beating he took, he would be slightly weaker than normal. Regardless, while this did close the gap in power somewhat, Vegeta was still above Frieza. During their fight, Vegeta wouldn't give Frieza the chance to try and blow up the planet again, since he would be relentless with his attacks. With everything Frieza has done to Vegeta throughout their life and on Namek, he would also be brutal in his methods against the Tyrant. So, instead of tricking him into getting sliced in half by his own attacks, he might break limbs of Frieza's. He might even decide to rip them off altogether, just so he could see the Tyrant suffer. He would eventually get bored of their fight, as Frieza's power would drop the more Vegeta injured him like this. So, he eventually rises into the air and charges up his Galactic gun. Frieza would fire a blast against this, but Vegeta would overtake the Tyrants, vaporizing him. He then returns to the ground, so he turns his attention towards the heroes. Since Gohan and them tried betraying him, he would prepare to fight them. Of course, Goku would try to talk him down from this, but it wouldn't work. so Goku's forced into his fighting stance alongside the others. Vegeta would charge at him, as he's easily pummeling Goku. Out of desperation, Goku would have to use the Kaioken and potentially push it higher than ever. He would try pushing it to the Kaioken times 25, which would be destroying his body in the process, but he started to get some good hits in on Vegeta. Of course, it wouldn't matter much since his body would give out before Vegeta's. With Goku now lying on the ground, Vegeta starts to toy with and torture him for the humiliation he was caused on Earth. Though he is interrupted by Gohan attacking him, since he got a rage boost from seeing his father beaten like this. Krillin and Piccolo would join in on Gohan's assault, as they hit Vegeta between each other for a bit, though he soon regains his bearings, as he then easily dodges all their attacks, with him knocking them around. They would slowly get weaker, until they could no longer move as well. He then throws them on top of Goku, as he prepares to finish them all at once. He would fly up and charge another Gallic gun, which when it hits the crippled heroes, they are all killed. With Vegeta now having nothing left to do on Namek, he would return to his space pod and leave, though he would also destroy Namek before he goes, since the planet is useless to him now. Of course, since Bulma was still on the planet, she would have been killed when it was destroyed. The first thing Vegeta would do, now that he won, is head back to Earth, so that he could destroy it too. Though no one there could really give him a fight, so he just blows up the planet and goes on his way. Since Frieza was killed, King Cold would have taken over the Empire, though he also would have searched for Vegeta. When they eventually meet, it would end up like his fight against Frieza, with his power rising throughout it. So, he would eventually kill King Cold as well. To make this timeline different, instead of Vegeta declaring himself king or emperor, he abolishes the Empire. He would travel to each planet of the Empire, killing all the inhabitants in the process, so that nothing remains of the Empire. He would also be doing this for fun since he still has a Saiyan desire for battle. After he finishes taking down the Empire, he would travel around the universe, conquering planets for fun. Mainly, he would be looking for fights that were a challenge to him, though the Saiyan Prince would quickly grow bored, since with his immortality, he wouldn't face any serious challenges. Even though he realizes it would be useless, he still scours his universe and invades planets, as he was searching for anyone to give him a good fight. Eventually he might find Broly and have a fight with him, though it's unlikely he would kill Paragus beforehand and make him turn into a Super Saiyan. So, even though both of their powers would grow throughout the fight, Vegeta would get bored and eventually kill Broly too. He would then kill Paragus before returning to wandering the universe. Also, with the Saiyan Prince never having anything to make him angry enough to transform, he wouldn't become a Super Saiyan. Vegeta would spend the rest of time searching for someone to scratch his itch for a good fight, but unfortunately for the Saiyan warrior, he never finds someone that can completely fulfill this desire of his. As another bonus chapter, I want to discuss what I think would have happened if Vegeta became a Super Saiyan on Namek. We start with Vegeta lying on the ground, once again beaten by Frieza, as Goku has just arrived on the battlefield. As Goku and Frieza start to fight, Goku still deflects all his death beams, though with Vegeta, the anger inside him would start to boil. Not only was he beaten to a pulp by the Tyrant and enslaved him, but here he is being outclassed by Kakarot again. Even worse, Kakarot might be the Super Saiyan of legend. This would only anger Vegeta more, as he would think there is no way a low-class Saiyan like Goku could become the Super Saiyan of legend before him. As his anger starts to boil over, he shakily rises to his feet, with lightning starting to strike nearby. The nearby waters would be affected as well, as they start getting choppy. Soon, the lightning strikes grow closer, with the ground starting to crumble at his feet. His hair would flash between black and yellow, but eventually he lets out a scream of rage, with his hair now being solid yellow and his eyes are a piercing blue. With Vegeta now unlocking the Super Saiyan transformation, this brings his power level up to 75 million. Since Frieza was only using about half of his power currently, and Vegeta knew he had to hurry and defeat Frieza, he would start to pummel the Tyrant. He wouldn't give Frieza a chance to use his full power, since he was using his full power from the start. He would begin to injure the Tyrant, which only weakens Frieza more. With Frieza becoming weaker over time, Vegeta would get bored with the fight as time goes on, so he would eventually blast and vaporize the Tyrant. He would then go to turn his attention towards the heroes, but this is when he realizes that they left the planet during his fight with Frieza, so he uses his space pod to leave Namek, but he still destroys the planet. Since they realize they wouldn't have the power to deal with Vegeta, they decide to return to Earth and prepare for his arrival, since it's likely he'd chase them. Also, since Piccolo is alive, they would use the Dragon Balls to revive the people killed by the Saiyans. Of course, this wouldn't include Shotsu since he couldn't be revived by them again. This also means Tien isn't revived, as he chose to stay in the other world with Shotsu. Back with Vegeta, he would likely go to another planet and train too, as he might have realized that if Frieza used his full power, he could have lost. Though after training for a while, he would decide it is time to head to Earth. Once he arrives, he would still decide to battle the heroes, with him challenging Goku. He would be the one that could give Vegeta the best fight. Because he doesn't know how to become a Super Saiyan, he couldn't do much for the Saiyan Prince. Goku likely would have trained to be able to push his Kaioken to 25 times, though it would still wreck his body. Also, since Vegeta trained as well, and with him having the Super Saiyan form, he would be beating down Goku. Out of desperation, he might have pushed the Kaioken to 50 times, but he couldn't handle it for long. When Goku fully collapses, Vegeta would blast him at point blank range, killing him. Of course, the other heroes would try attacking him, but they wouldn't stand a chance against him either, so, unfortunately for them, they were all defeated and killed by Vegeta. Now that he achieved his goal of killing Frieza and Goku, his only major goal left is to take down King Cold, which, with the training he did, it wouldn't be hard for him to do. When he eventually confronts the Tyrant, he would easily kill him after turning into his Super Saiyan form. Now that both Tyrants are gone, he would take over the Empire for himself. Vegeta would likely gather any remaining Saiyans in his timeline as well, so that he could restart the Saiyan race. However, he would also wipe out the inhabitants of Frieza's Empire over time, so that they are replaced with Saiyans. Eventually, this would allow the Empire to be fully composed of Saiyans, so his Empire becomes the Saiyan Empire, though it would take a while, and it would be far after Vegeta's lifetime that this happens. With Vegeta being crowned Emperor, he would become known as Emperor Vegeta I. Also, at the heart of his empire, would be the planet he selected to be the new home planet of the Saiyans. On this planet, he would have had a castle built for him. After it was built for him, he and his family would live inside of it. Regardless, Vegeta and the other Saiyans would still conquer other planets so that they could still experience the thrill of battle. Though instead of selling the planets like they used to, the planets they conquered would become colonies of the Saiyans. So, eventually there would be more Saiyans than there ever were before Frieza destroyed planet Vegeta. While the Saiyan Empire wouldn't get massive during Vegeta's lifetime, it would become known as one of the best emperors, if not the best emperor, that the Saiyan Empire ever had. For Dr. Wheelo to win against the heroes, we start at the beginning of the movie, when Gohan and Oolong were ambushed by the Bio-Men. In this timeline, Dr. Wheelo's henchmen ambushed Piccolo earlier, so he can't come in and rescue Gohan and Oolong. Without Piccolo's help, Gohan and Oolong would be killed by the Bio-Men. Later, at Kame House, the Bio-Men show up asking for Master Roshi. He refuses to go with them, so they attack him, but they are easily defeated. Dr. Kochin then appears, and once the Bio-Men put Bulma's life in danger, Roshi agrees to go with them. At Goku's house, he is told by Krillin what happened to Roshi. Goku is already about to leave to try and find Gohan again, since he's been missing for a couple of days. So, Goku uses the Flying Nimbus and heads off to save Roshi and Bulma, and hopefully to find his son as well. The next parts will go the same as usual, with Roshi fighting the Bio Warriors but losing, even though he put up a good fight. This is when Bulma will inform them that Roshi isn't the strongest in the world, Goku is. Speaking of Goku, he would arrive and defeat Miso Katsune by using the Kaioken. Then when he fights Kashimi and Ebi Furia, he's entombed in ice. Right before they throw their finishing attack, Krillin arrives. Since he is defeated, Goku must resort to using the Kaioken again to break free of the ice. While still using the Kaioken, he then defeats Kashimi and Ebi Furia. Goku and Krillin then arrive at Dr. Wheelo's lab, as they demand to know where Master Roshi is. Dr. Kochin reveals they are in the process of turning Roshi into a Bio Warrior. Regardless, they then summon the brainwashed Piccolo to defeat Goku. Since Gohan isn't there to break the mind control device on Piccolo, he would have a long and drawn out fight with Goku. He would likely have to use the Kaioken to fight Piccolo, but this would end up destroying his body in the process. Once he eventually collapses, the battered Piccolo would fight Krillin and Roshi next. Even when weakened, he can easily defeat both Krillin and Roshi. Since they were all defeated, Dr. Kochin would start the process of swapping Goku and Dr. Wheelo's minds. With the heroes defeated, they wouldn't be able to stop this, so Dr. Wheelo's mind is then put into Goku's body. So that Goku couldn't try to fight them while in Dr. Wheelo's body, they would then destroy it before Goku regained consciousness. With Dr. Wheelo now having achieved his goal, Dr. Kochin would have Bulma and Piccolo knocked out too. He would then take the unconscious heroes and turn them all into Bio Warriors like how he planned to do with Roshi. Now, while that was going on, it would take Dr. Wheelo time to adjust to using Goku's body. At first, he would be weaker than Goku was, like how Captain Ginyu was when he first switched bodies with Goku. However, over time, he grew more accustomed to this body and adjusted to it completely, so he managed to use Goku's full power. With him now having this amount of power, he would easily overthrow King Furry and become the ruler of the Earth, like he wanted to. Since he now rules the world, he could do whatever he wanted to. So, he would work on becoming the greatest scientist ever, like he dreamed of being. He might force other scientists to work with him, so that their research is at his disposal, thus allowing him to further his own studies. Anyway, now that he is in Goku's body, it's possible he would have discovered the Saiyan's power of Zenkai boosts. It's hard to say if he would study Goku's body and discover that he was an alien, but since he is a scientist, I believe he would do so. Also, since his studies focus on bioengineering, he would be able to locate this gene in the DNA, isolate it, study it, and then replicate it. After replicating it, he would inject it into Bio Warriors they make. This means that his Bio Warriors would grow stronger after recovering from any near-death experiences they have. Regardless, with these toughened Bio Warriors at his disposal, no one would be able to stop Dr. Wheelo from ruling over the planet. For Turles to win, the best chance he has of winning starts with a small change early on. It doesn't seem like it would change a lot. As usual, the space probe lands on Earth and starts a fire in the forest that Gohan, Bulma, Krillin, and Oolong were camping in. The change happens when the forest is burning down, and as the tree lands on Icarus, it kills him instead of just trapping him. Later, after they use Shenron to restore the forest, the animals are brought back to life too. Though, since Icarus died during the fire, Gohan never would have met him, even after he was revived. Regardless, the object that started the fire then sends the information about the Earth to Turles and his men. Since it determined the Earth is suitable to grow the Tree of Might, they head there right away. When they eventually arrive, they plant a seed in the area that the space probe arrived in before. The explosion they caused to plant the seed caused Yamcha and Polar to wreck his cruiser. Anyway, it doesn't take long for the seed to start growing into the Tree of Might, as it destroys part of the surrounding area. Back at Goku's house, all the heroes gathered for dinner, but Goku is contacted by King Kai. He tells Goku about the Tree of Might, so he passes this on to the other heroes. After learning this, Goku, Yamcha, Krillin, Tien, and Shotzi leave to destroy the tree, but their attacks do nothing. They are then confronted by Turles' Crusher Corps, with Tien and Shotzi taking on Raisin and Lakusei. Krillin ends up taking on Amon, while Yamcha fights Kakao, though all of them struggle against their opponents. So, Goku ends up fighting both Daze and Kakao, as he then sends them flying. Gohan ends up rescuing Shotzi from Lakusei, as he easily beats Lakusei. They are then interrupted by Turles, who gives Gohan a chance to either join him or die. He refused to join him, but Piccolo then arrived to save Gohan. Turles then ambushes Piccolo from behind and blasts him away. He then makes an artificial moon and forces Gohan to transform into a great ape, but he then destroys the moon, so he doesn't transform as well. Goku then tries to help Gohan, but he starts to crush his father in his hands. Normally, he nearly killed Goku, but Icarus arrived and calmed Gohan down. But since Gohan never met Icarus, he doesn't arrive, so Goku would be killed by Gohan. Around this time, Turles' henchmen would have defeated the other Z fighters, though in this timeline, instead of just defeating them, they would have killed them. Regardless, since Gohan refused to join Turles before, and he's still rampaging as a great ape, they would all blast him together. Their combined blast would pierce Gohan through the chest, killing the young boy. Also, the Tree of Might would have finished taking all the energy from the Earth by now, so all of them would eat a piece of fruit from the Tree of Might. But since there is more than enough for each to have more than one piece, all of them might eat multiple pieces, so that they grow even stronger. They would also keep the seeds from the fruits, so that they could grow more Trees of Might in the future. Regardless, with Earth now a barren wasteland, they would leave the planet. Based on some of the lines said about or by Turles in Dragon Ball's universe too, he wanted to destroy Frieza's race and then rebuild the Saiyan race. Even in the movie, he mentioned that after destroying the Earth, he wanted to go on to rule the universe. Before going to challenge Frieza, he would continue to go to other planets like the Earth, so that they could grow more Trees of Might. They would continue this process until they get to the level of strength that they could beat Frieza at. When they finally go to confront Frieza, the Tyrant wouldn't stand a chance against Turles and his men. Also, Turles wouldn't let Frieza transform, as he just wanted to destroy Frieza as soon as he could. So, Frieza would be vaporized by all of them while he was in his first form. From there, they would go on to face King Cold, and he would meet a similar fate. Now that Frieza's race is destroyed, Turles would start to build up his own empire. Instead of using the Tree of Might on every planet he went to, he would incorporate the planets he spares into his empire. The remnants of Frieza's empire are also combined with his new empire. So, he would crown himself as the Emperor, but regardless, he gets a reputation for being merciless. He still uses the Tree of Might on some planets, just so he can get stronger. This caused him to be seen as merciless, since he had no issue with sacrificing billions of lives just to increase his strength. Anyway, his next goal is to rebuild the Saiyan race, like in the previous chapters, and the remaining Saiyans they find would be permitted to join his empire. Eventually, he would have a family of his own, and the Saiyan race would grow over time, though because of the strength he and his men gained from the fruit of the Tree of Might, no one can stop him from ruling the universe with an iron fist. For Lord Slug to win, we start with his henchmen fighting Gohan. After they took the Dragon Ball from him, they were able to easily defeat him, and they normally left Gohan unconscious. Instead, in this timeline, they kill Gohan, so they wouldn't have to deal with him later. From there, Lord Slug then sends his henchmen to gather the remaining Dragon Balls, which they find easily since he stole the radar from Bulma. After all the Dragon Balls are collected, Lord Slug uses them to wish for eternal youth, so his body is reverted to the age he was the strongest at. He then launches a terra-freezing device into the sky, as it then produces clouds that block out the sun, so the Earth begins to freeze. Meanwhile, God Ruby finds Goku and Krillin and gives them sensu beans, so they leave to find Lord Slug. Later, Piccolo would end up investigating Lord Slug's camp, as he gets into battle with all three of his henchmen. With the three of them teaming up on Piccolo, he doesn't stand a chance, so he is killed as well. This is when Goku and Krillin would arrive, though Lord Slug would realize that his henchmen likely can't handle Goku, so he confronts Goku while he has his henchmen take on Krillin. In the fight between Krillin and Lord Slug's henchmen, he wouldn't stand a chance against them, so he is swiftly killed. And with Lord Slug and Goku, he easily pummels Goku, so he goes to finish him off. However, Goku turns into his pseudo Super Saiyan form, as he then catches Lord Slug's fist and breaks his arm. Goku then drops out of this form, so Lord Slug reveals he is a Namekian and turns into his giant form. He then grabs Goku and starts to crush him in his hands, but since Piccolo isn't alive to intervene, Goku is crushed to death. With Lord Slug now victorious, he and his henchmen would finish terror freezing the Earth. They then use it as their next star cruiser, and since Lord Slug wanted to conquer the universe, they would start conquering planets after this, but they would still terror freeze the planets they conquer, so that Lord Slug's men could live on these planets. With them conquering planets like this, eventually they might get into conflict with Frieza. However, in the movie, King Kai mentioned how Lord Slug was stronger than Frieza, so the Super Namekian would be able to kill the Tyrant. He would also kill King Cold eventually, so that he couldn't take over his son's empire. Since the Tyrants are dead, no one would be able to get in his way of ruling the universe. He and his men would continue to conquer planets by turning them into frozen wastelands. Since he has eternal youth, the whole universe would eventually fall under his control. With all his planets having been terror frozen, this allows his group of henchmen to expand. This means that the whole universe will essentially be a frozen wasteland that is ruled by Lord Slug and his demonic henchmen. As a brief side note, since Frieza had multiple chances to win, and if we include Mecha Frieza, there are 4 sagas related to him, so I decided to do a chapter about each of these sagas. I'm also going to bring Cooler into some of these chapters, minus the Mecha Frieza and King Cold chapters, just so they're a little more interesting. Anyway, for Frieza to win in the Namek saga, the first change must happen back during the Saiyan saga. When Krillin was about to kill Vegeta, Goku normally stopped him from doing so. This time, however, Krillin kills him right as Goku shouted for him to stop, so he didn't hear him. But when he asked Goku what he said, Goku would say something about it being too late now. Everything else goes the same, up until they arrive on planet Namek. After they get off the ship, they see a pod like Vegeta's landing, which confuses them. Of course, this is Kui arriving on the planet, though with Vegeta not being there, he isn't killed immediately. Anyway, some of Frieza's regular soldiers still find Gohan and Krillin. They destroy the ship as usual, but they are defeated shortly afterwards. In the meantime, Kui meets up with Frieza and the others as they all leave towards the next village. Gohan and Krillin sense this, so they hide as they watch Frieza go by. When they realize they are heading towards the next Dragon Ball, they suppress their ki and head after them. Back on Earth, this is around the time Goku gets a senzu bean and then uses the spaceship Dr. Brief made to leave for Namek. Anyway, on Namek, the attack of the village goes essentially the same, with Gohan and Krillin rescuing Dende. Of course, Dodoria is still sent to chase them, but Krillin uses the solar flare to blind Dodoria. They still just barely escape from Dodoria's blast, so he then returns to Frieza, but a Tyrant might make him show the bodies as proof. So, he would take off in search of their bodies, but he can't find them. After Dodoria left the first time, they went back to the cave Bulma was hiding in. Regardless, back with Frieza, since their scouters were destroyed, he still sends some of his regular men to search for the remaining Dragon Balls. When the heroes realize there are only 2 Dragon Balls left, then they would take Krillin to the Grand Elder, while Gohan is told to stay behind. The meeting with Krillin and the Grand Elder goes the same, with his potential being unlocked along with being given the Dragon Ball. However, Gohan would have sensed the power levels at the only remaining village. Since he didn't notice any evil power levels there, he would leave to get their Dragon Ball. Once there, the Namekians would realize his intentions are pure, so they give him the Dragon Ball. However, this is when Frieza's soldiers arrive at the village, but Gohan easily defeats them. He then returns to the cave Bulma was at, as he waits for Krillin to return. Back with Frieza, since the squadron they sent out for the Dragon Ball never returned, and Dodoria didn't come back, he decides to call for the Ginyu Force to bring them scouters. He also sends Zarbon to go to the village and get the Dragon Ball. Krillin would have returned at this time, so he tells Gohan about how the Grand Elder can unlock his hidden power. This is when they sense that more Namekians are being killed, which Zarbon only started to kill them since they told him they don't have a Dragon Ball. Regardless, the two head there together, as they try to stop Zarbon. Even with Krillin's potential unlocked, their power levels are still beneath Zarbon's, so he would easily toy with the two, but he eventually uses his elegant blaster against Krillin, killing him. This enrages Gohan, so he starts to pummel Zarbon with his rage boost. However, this causes Zarbon to turn into his monster form. Even with his rage boost, Gohan no longer stood a chance. Instead of killing him, Zarbon would beat him to near death. He would also ask Gohan about where the Dragon Balls are, as he likely realized that they have them. Gohan would resist answering this at first, but he would eventually beat this answer out of Gohan. So, he forces Gohan to show him where they are, and once they arrive, he kills both Gohan and Bulma. Zarbon then takes the Dragon Balls, along with the bodies of Krillin and Gohan to Frieza, to prove that they were killed. Frieza would try to summon the dragon, but it wouldn't work. He would would realize that there must be some kind of code, along with realizing there must be Namekians that aren't in the village, since the 7th Dragon Ball had to come from somewhere else. So, he and his men would scour Namek, and they would eventually come across the Grand Elder's house. Nail would still step out to take them on, so Frieza would go on to fight Nail himself, which, their fight goes the same as it always does, with Nail refusing to tell Frieza how the Dragon Balls worked. Frieza then killed him, before returning to the Grand Elder to get the answer from him. Even he refused, and he wouldn't mention that the Dragon Balls were tied to his life, so Frieza would eventually kill him. This would turn the Dragon Balls to stone, which of course angers Frieza. It's his own fault for killing the Grand Elder, but he still decides to take his anger out on the planet. So, after all his men return to his ship and they go into space, Frieza would destroy planet Namek. King Kai would have been watching all of this go down, so he gets in contact with Goku and tells him that the heroes there were killed, and planet Namek was destroyed. This angers Goku, so he asks where this Frieza is going, but King Kai would try to talk him out of fighting the Tyrant. Since they are doomed anyway, Piccolo convinces King Kai to tell Goku, so that he could try to have his revenge. When Goku eventually arrives at the planet Frieza is on, he would challenge the Tyrant right away. But since his power level is only 90,000, he couldn't do much to the Tyrant while in his base form. He would begin with using the Kaioken, though he quickly must push it to the Kaioken times 10. However, this forces Frieza into transforming into his second form, as he regains the advantage over Goku. He then pushes the Kaioken even further into the Kaioken times 20, so he starts to pummel Frieza again, though the moment the Tyrant gets a chance to, he turns into his third form. While this brings him closer in power, he's still losing to Goku. So, he resorts to turning into his final form, as he then starts to dominate Goku in the fight. Without Goku having seen his friends or family killed in front of him, he likely doesn't turn into a Super Saiyan. Even if he did, he would still be far beneath Frieza in power. Regardless, the Tyrant toys with him for a little bit, but Goku eventually drops to his base form since he couldn't handle the strain of the Kaioken times 20 forever. With him back in his base form, Frieza would get bored quickly, so he shoots Goku through the chest with a death beam, killing him. Now that Frieza defeated Goku, he wouldn't have any more threats to his power, so he would continue to rule over the universe the same way he has been doing, by having his soldiers conquer new planets for him. Though, he still had to keep an eye on what his brother Cooler is doing, so that he doesn't go into his brother's empire's territory. As much as he doesn't like his brother, he knows he can't beat him in a fight, so the two Tyrants would maintain their control over the universe. Of course, King Cold would still have a presence in their empires as well. He just wouldn't be ruling the empire directly. He mostly would just be handling logistical things or solving any squabbles between his two sons. Regardless, without anyone to get in their way, the Cold family eventually gains control over the entire universe. This is kind of a joke chapter that was inspired by Dragon Ball Multiverse, but I wanted to change it a little, so it follows the story of the actual series a little more. This timeline starts when Captain Ginyu is about to change bodies with Vegeta. The difference in this timeline is that Goku's in worse shape than usual, so he can't move at all. So, Ginyu manages to change bodies with Vegeta. However, since Vegeta's body was even weaker, Ginyu would only have a power level of about 7700 while in his body. So, he would be beaten to a pulp by both Gohan and Krillin since they didn't have any qualms about hurting Vegeta's body. However, he would go to change bodies with Gohan next, and since both Goku and Vegeta can't move anymore, they couldn't stop him from doing so. This puts his power level at 6100, so he would be being beaten by Krillin too, though it might be harder for Krillin to willingly attack Gohan's body. So, when he got the chance to finish off Ginyu, he wouldn't hesitate, which allows Ginyu to take his body. This drops Ginyu's power level even further, as it is now down to 5000. Since none of the heroes can get in his way anymore, he would kill them all with a ki blast. He would then report back to Frieza, and while he was shocked about his choice of body, he was in the process of fighting Nail. So, when Frieza learned from Nail about Dende, Frieza would send Ginyu to deal with the child. When he catches up to Dende, he would think this was Krillin, but that thought doesn't last long, as he then attacks Dende and tries to force the incantation out of him. Dende wouldn't give it up, so he would be killed by Ginyu. By the time he reports to Frieza again, Nail would have been killed as well, so their only chance remaining is to interrogate the Grand Elder Guru. Frieza would send Ginyu to do this, but he forgets to tell Ginyu about the Dragon Balls being tied to Guru's life. When Ginyu arrives, it wouldn't take Guru long to sense that this isn't Krillin. Because of this, he wouldn't give up the incantation either, so he would be killed by Ginyu. Then when he returns to the ship and reports what happened to Frieza, the Tyrant would be angered by this report, though Ginyu wouldn't know why. The captain would try to beg for forgiveness, but he is shot through the chest with a death beam. Frieza then has a regular soldier drag him into another room to destroy the body, but this is when Ginyu uses the last of his life force to switch bodies with his soldier. He then destroys Krillin's body, as he goes and acts like a regular soldier by reporting to Frieza that the body was destroyed. To keep up the charade, he would follow whatever orders Frieza gives to him next. Speaking about Frieza, since he couldn't get his wish, when they leave Namek, he destroys the planet. From there, things go the same as usual, with Frieza sending his soldiers to conquer planets for him. Of course, Ginyu would be hiding amongst these soldiers, so he would follow Frieza's orders for now. Ginyu would be trying to figure out why Frieza tried to kill him, as all he has done was follow his orders. Though, while living his life as a regular soldier, he would see how many people were really dying for Frieza. Since he doesn't know if this soldier had a family or anything outside of the army, it would be hard for him to completely fit in. So, he would start observing the soldier that was his commanding officer. This way, he can figure out how that soldier lives and acts both in the army and outside of it. After observing him for a while, he would eventually switch bodies with his commanding officer, and kill the body he was just in, so he could hide his tracks. He would continue this process over the years, until he eventually takes the body of someone of the highest rank in Frieza's army. This would allow him to make reports to Frieza himself about how conquests go, and he would learn how Frieza doesn't care that they are out there dying for him. But since he is never alone with Frieza, even when he is this high up in the army, he doesn't get the chance to switch bodies with the Tyrant. More often than not, he ends up interacting with Frieza's staff instead of the Tyrant himself. When he gets the chance, he would switch bodies with one of these staff members. Though, he then must work his way up through the ranks of Frieza's staff, so that he becomes one of Frieza's personal staff members. When he eventually does so, he would get the opportunity to switch bodies with Frieza, but it would take years for him to get the perfect chance to do so. It mainly only took this long so that he could learn how Frieza lives his life completely, so that no one would suspect anything. Once he changes bodies with Frieza, he kills the old body he was in, so that no one can find out anything. Now that he is in Frieza's body, the only one he would ever have to take orders from is King Cold, though he would also have to deal with Cooler sometimes, but he doesn't have to take his orders. Anyway, entering the King Cold might give him the idea to observe him, so that he could eventually take over his body. That way, he wouldn't have to answer to anyone at all. But since King Cold isn't directly leading an empire anymore, it would take him longer to observe King Cold than it did with anyone else. Frieza and Cold very rarely met up, so if he came around more often, it might make King Cold suspicious. So, many years pass until he's ready to switch bodies with King Cold. Once he does, he would destroy Frieza's body like he did with the other bodies he switched from. Though, he would have had a plan to kill Cooler as well, so that he couldn't ask what happened to his brother. The next time he meets up with Cooler, he would catch him off guard and kill him. Then for their empires, he would play it off as some freak accident that had happened and killed the two. He takes over their two empires, so they are combined into one, the Cold Empire. With him as ruler, he would continue to act like King Cold did, though he also might care a little more about how many soldiers are dying for his sake. Also, with no one to get in his way, the whole universe would fall under his control eventually. Regardless, since he killed all the bodies he switched from, no one would ever learn his true identity, as it would have been lost to time. While Frieza had many chances to win in his battle against the heroes, this timeline will start right after Frieza survives against the Spirit Bomb, since it almost killed him. The change in this timeline is that he takes what Vegeta said about Goku being the Super Saiyan seriously. When Frieza appears, he shoots Piccolo through the chest with his Death Beam. Next, he doesn't raise Krillin into the sky, but Goku instead. He then causes Goku to explode, much to the shock of the other heroes. With Goku dead and Piccolo seemingly dead, this would cause Gohan to become enraged. As the seas start getting choppy, lightning starts striking around them, but it soon growing closer. The ground then begins to crumble at his feet and rise into the air, while his hair flashes between black and yellow. Though he soon lets out a scream of rage and agony, as his hair becomes solid yellow, and his eyes are now teal. Based on power scaling videos I've watched, the Super Saiyan Gohan would be equal to Frieza when he was using half of his full power. So, the young boy would catch Frieza off guard, as he starts to pummel the Tyrant. However, Frieza would eventually regain his bearings, as he starts attacking Gohan back. Though he would go into his full power form, which is when Gohan no longer stands a chance. He would be getting decimated by Frieza, so Krillin would try to help him. Even together, the two don't stand a chance, so they are beaten into the ground. When Frieza eventually gets bored of this fight, he would end the two off with a Death Beam. Now that the heroes were defeated, Frieza would return to his ship, since even when damaged, it would still fly. Regardless, he would leave the planet, but he destroys it after he's a safe distance away. Of course, when the planet explodes, Piccolo and Bulma would be killed as well. Anyway, Frieza would then return to the planet he uses as his base of operations so he could heal. It's likely King Cold would have heard from Frieza about his near defeat against the Saiyan on Namek, and how most of his forces were wiped out. This might cause King Cold to second guess selecting Frieza as his successor. So, by the time Frieza's out of the healing pod, King Cold would set up a meeting with him. Once they meet, he would tell his son how he is combining the Frieza Empire with Cooler's, along with making Cooler the sole ruler. Of course, this would anger the Tyrant, but he would know he can't do anything to his father, at least right now. Frieza is a petty tyrant, and he isn't one to take anything sitting down. But since he isn't strong enough to stop his father, he might have to do something he never pictured himself doing, which is training. Now, I'm not going to make him achieve the golden form, but I think he would unlock a fifth form like how Cooler did. Based on things things Cooler said. His 4th form is weaker than Frieza's. It was just his 5th form that made him stronger. So, if Frieza unlocked this form, he would be stronger than Cooler. Anyway, after Frieza unlocked this form, he would challenge Cooler to a fight. While it would be a long and drawn out fight between the two Tyrants, Frieza would have the advantage. So, he would eventually use his Death Ball to vaporize his brother. After Cooler was killed, Cold would take over the Empire, though Frieza would eventually challenge his father to a fight, which Frieza would be able to kill him as well, so Frieza regains control of his empire. Now that there is no one left to get in Frieza's way, he would go on to rule the entire universe. As mentioned earlier, this chapter and the next chapter are the ones I'm not going to include Cooler in. Anyway, Mecha Frieza normally stands no chance against future Trunks or Goku, so for Frieza to defeat them, the change would happen right after he is rebuilt into his Mecha form. Instead of him going to Earth right away to fight Goku, his near-death experience on Namek motivates him to train. Also, since Goku wouldn't have sensed Frieza going to Earth right away, he would have trained on Yardrat for longer, but to make this timeline different than the previous one, Frieza will get the golden form this time. So, he trains for 4 months, with him unlocking the golden form. After he finishes his training, he then leaves for Earth, though he decides to go alone this time, since he doesn't need King Cold's help. On Earth, Gohan would notice a strong ki coming to the Earth, though he then gets a phone call from Krillin. Krillin asked if he felt this ki, and he pointed out that it was one they felt before, up on King Kai's planet. He was in disbelief that this was Frieza on his way to Earth. Back on Earth, Piccolo noticed this ki as well. Even Vegeta noticed it, as he told Yamcha and Bulma about it. Then with Tien and Shatsu, they noticed it too. Anyway, Gohan then put on the Saiyan armor and left to go towards this ki. On his way there, he meets up with Krillin, so they head there together. Yamcha and Vegeta were already there, as Bulma and Floor then arrived. Yamcha tries to get her to leave, but she says they're doomed anyway, so she came to see what Frieza looked like before she died. Tien and Shatsu then arrive, but Vegeta tells him to suppress their power levels. He then points out Piccolo, as he was there and already suppressed his power level. Gohan and Krillin are the last to arrive, but Frieza's ship then lands on the Earth. Yamcha briefly freaks out about how strong Frieza is, so Piccolo asks if they should just lie down and die, while Vegeta points out that this isn't just the end for them, but it's the end for the Earth as well. Frieza then exits his ship and was going to send his men to kill all the Earthlings. However, they were interrupted by the arrival of a mysterious individual. Of course, this is future Trunks, so I figured now would be the best time to point out something. The version of future Trunks that arrived in this timeline is from a timeline that Frieza didn't train in. Anyway, when Frieza asks what he wants, Trunks says that he is there to kill him. Frieza sends his soldiers to fight him first, but they are easily taken out by Trunks. After he talks with Frieza briefly, he mentions that Goku isn't the only Super Saiyan, as he transforms into a Super Saiyan. Though with the training Frieza did in this timeline, he still pummels Trunks. Like how he toyed with Gohan in the Golden Frieza saga, he would toy with Trunks as well. It wouldn't take him long to get bored of this. He eventually throws Trunks to the side and went to shoot a death beam at him. At this point, Goku would have used the instant transmission to teleport in front of Frieza. He already turned into his Super Saiyan form, as he then deflects the death beam. Frieza would be happy to see Goku finally arrive, as he tells Goku how he has been training for this day. So they would start the fight immediately, but Goku would stand no chance against him. Even though Frieza wouldn't have to transform into his golden form, he would decide to show Goku his golden form anyway. From there, he would be dominating Goku in this fight, as he could no longer get a hit in. Normally a fight like this would bore Frieza, but since he wanted revenge against Goku for the humiliation caused against himself on Namek, he would draw this fight out as long as possible. Eventually, Goku would revert to his base form since he ran out of energy. Around this time, the other heroes would try to attack Frieza to save Goku. Trunks would try his luck at attacking Frieza again, though with Goku not being able to stop Frieza this time, Trunks is killed by Frieza's death beam. Frieza then goes on to kill Vegeta, as he would have been the next strongest one there. Next, he would target Piccolo, which he wouldn't stand a chance either. Since Piccolo is killed, Kami dies as well, but the Dragon Balls disappear. Anyway, Piccolo's death would enrage Gohan, so he rushes in and tries fighting Frieza. However, Frieza would easily pummel the young boy and knock him aside. He didn't plan to kill Goku's son yet, just so he could make Goku suffer more. He's also seen how Goku reacted to Krillin's death before, so he doesn't go after him right away either. Next, he would go after Tien and Shatsu, as they tried to attack Frieza together. Since Shatsu's telekinesis isn't enough to hold Frieza in place, he easily kills the two of them. Even Yamcha and Apar would try attacking Frieza together, but they meet their demise at the hands of the Tyrant as well. Even though she isn't a fighter, Frieza would take out Bulma, since she was on the sidelines watching. Now that everyone else is taken care of, Frieza turns his attention to Krillin. He would torture the monk just to bother the defenseless Goku even more. Though when Krillin could no longer move, he would switch his attention to Gohan. Like he did to both Krillin and Goku, he would do the same to Gohan, as he then throws him on top of Krillin. Frieza would then use a barrage of death beams on the two, thus killing them. This would send Goku into a fit of rage, which might be enough to help him stand, even though he was weakened. He would use the last of his energy to turn into a Super Saiyan again, but he doesn't stop there. As he starts screaming out of anger, the ground cracks at his feet. Pieces of the ground soon start flying in the air around him, while lightning starts to crackle throughout his aura. When he lets out one final scream of anger, his hair spikes up more, before dust is kicked up around them. After the dust clears, it is revealed that Goku has unlocked his Super Saiyan 2 form. Even though he didn't master Super Saiyan in this timeline, seeing all his friends, his best friend, and his son die would be enough to push his anger over the edge. He then rushes at Frieza and unleashes a desperate assault on the Tyrant as he pummels him. After sending Frieza flying into the ground, he would fire a Super Kamehameha at the Tyrant, though he would use his instant transmission as well, so that he hits Frieza with it at point blank range. This would send dust flying around Frieza too, but unfortunately for Goku, once the dust clears, it is shown that Frieza was unscathed. His golden form is far above the Super Saiyan 2 in power, which he goes on to show Goku as he begins to pummel the Saiyan again. Since Goku was already low on energy, it didn't take much for him to get beaten back into his base form. When he is once again made immobile, Frieza would decide to make him feel the pain that he did on Namek. To replicate a Spirit Bomb Goku used against him, he would use a weakened version of his Death Ball. He only used a weakened version so that it wouldn't kill him, it would just injure him. Frieza then uses his Death Saucers to split the Saiyan in half, like how Frieza was. Lastly, he then uses his Death Cannon, as it was the last attack he used against Goku. His Death Cannon would vaporize the weakened Saiyan, so Frieza would return to his ship. After leaving the Earth's atmosphere, he uses his Death Ball to destroy the planet. Though, he then reversed to his fourth form since the strain of the golden form was too much for his body. With Goku now dead and the Earth destroyed, Frieza would go back to ruling his empire in his normal methods. Normally, I don't include later villains in this, but to make this timeline more interesting, I decided to include one. Years after the defeat of Goku, the god of destruction, Beerus, would wake up. He might meet with Goku and Gohan in the afterlife, but they would be nowhere near the level of power Beerus was searching for. Even though he couldn't find the Super Saiyan God, he would still want to have a good fight with someone. Since he would have asked what happened to the Saiyans, he would have heard about Frieza's new level of power. So, Beerus would want to investigate this for himself. When he meets with Frieza, he would challenge him to a fight. If Frieza could put up a good enough fight, he would spare the Tyrant from destruction. So, Frieza would agree, as he would not want to be destroyed. Since Frieza still trained somewhat over the years since Goku was defeated, he would have unlocked his true golden form. This allows him to put up a better fight against Beerus than Goku did, but in the end, he would still be defeated. Even though Beerus would be reluctant to do so at first, many years down the road, he would decide to take Frieza on as a candidate for the next God of Destruction. This would have happened far after his first fight with Frieza since he was nowhere near thinking about retirement at the time. Anyway, he would start training under both Beerus and Whis to become the next God of Destruction. By this point, it's possible that Frieza would have trained enough to unlock his black form. However, during their training, Whis would realize how his mechanical body would be a hindrance for Frieza, so he would use his powers to revert him to a completely organic body. There's nothing proving Whis can do this, but he was able to revive Frieza with just his staff, so I don't see why he couldn't do this. Over the years of training with Beerus and Whis, he might access some equivalent of Ultra Ego or Ultra Instinct, but it's hard to say what that would look like, as we've never seen his race use these forms. When Beerus was eventually ready to retire, we'd have one last fight with Frieza, just to ensure he is ready to become the God of Destruction, which Frieza should have no trouble in being able to defeat Beerus, since his potential in combination with godly training would have boosted his power exponentially. After Beerus is defeated, he transfers the title of God of Destruction to Frieza. Now that Frieza has this position, he would rule over the entirety of Universe 7. Though, he couldn't destroy as freely as he did when he was Emperor, since he had to keep his universe balanced to keep Zeno happy. As God of Destruction, he would still have Whis as a teacher for him, so Whis would help keep him in line of destroying freely like he used to. A major difference between him and Beerus is that when he marks a planet for destruction, he likely wouldn't give them a chance out of it like Beerus did if they had good enough food. So, he would gain a reputation as a ruthless God of Destruction, but this would also work in instilling fear into the planets within his universe to become strong enough to not be erased. While it isn't the best motivator to use, fear is a powerful motivator, and Frieza is more than experienced in instilling fear into people to achieve his goals. Like with the last chapter, this is another chapter that I'm not including Cooler in. Regardless, this timeline begins after future Trunks managed to kill Mecha Frieza. Normally, Trunks would then kill King Cold, but this is when the change in this timeline happens. King Cold doesn't transform in the manga, and we don't even know if he could transform, though for the sake of this timeline, I'm going to say he can transform. Based on some power scaling things I've seen and some calculations I did, a hypothetical third form King Cold would still be behind future Trunks in power, So, while he would put up a better fight against Trunks, he must turn into his final form. So, when he does turn into his final form, his initial power level would be equal to Trunks's. This means that he wouldn't even have to use his full power to defeat Trunks, he would only use about 10% of his power. This allows him to easily kill Trunks, as he blasts him through the chest with a death beam. Goku would then teleport in to try and face King Cold, but even as a Super Saiyan, he's easily defeated as well. Instead of fighting all the heroes one-on-one after that, he would rise into the sky and use the Death Ball to destroy the planet along with the heroes. He only did this since that was his original suggestion to Frieza, so that they could just be done with it. Before the planet completely blows up, he would return to his ship and leave, as he watches the Earth explode from outer space. Now that Frieza is dead, King Cold would take the Empire back over, so it is renamed to the Cold Empire. He is just as ruthless of an emperor as Frieza, but he is also more tactical than Frieza. So, he likely wouldn't kill his men over every small grievance he had like Frieza did, though he would still kill any of them if he had to make an example of them, like if one failed to carry out an order of his. Regardless, he would expand the Empire eventually, so that the entire universe was under his rule. Also, while he could try to make another child, he likely doesn't try to for a while. That way, he can try to correct the process, so that they aren't a failure like Frieza was. Regardless, he would rule over the Empire with an iron fist, as no one would be able to overthrow the Tyrant. The easiest way for Cooler to win starts during Goku's first encounter with Cooler. Normally, Cooler went to blast Gohan, but Goku got in the way as it injured him. This time, however, his blast manages to go straight through Goku, killing him. But since he was trying to protect Gohan, this likely means Cooler's blast would pierce Gohan's chest and kill him too. Which, while it is a little anticlimactic, Cooler's plan was just to personally kill Goku and then destroy the Earth. So, before the others could even realize what was happening, Cooler and his men would return to their spaceship and leave the Earth's atmosphere. They then stop above the planet and Cooler exits his ship, as he then uses his supernova to wipe out the planet and everyone on it. From there, since Cooler would have gotten revenge for Goku smearing his family's name, he would go back to ruling his empire. Though with both Frieza and King Cold dead, Cooler's empire would be combined with the remnants of Frieza's empire, so his empire would be far bigger than it ever was. Also, since there would be no heroes around to get in his way, he would continue to grow and expand his empire. His empire would eventually grow to the point that the entire universe is under his control. As for how he runs his empire, unlike Frieza, he wouldn't kill his men for every little mistake. Cooler is much more respectful of his forces, and he'll even step in to help if they're facing a threat his henchmen can't handle. Just because he has these honorable qualities doesn't mean he isn't evil, though, as he is a ruthless emperor and is willing to attack children, incapacitate his foes, along with being willing to ambush people from behind. So, he would be a ruthless emperor when it comes to conquering the universe, but he's much more lenient when it comes to ruling the empire. For Meta Cooler to win, it's a slightly more abstract change that happens. The major change would have to be that the Big Getty Star is able to absorb more energy than usual. So, when Goku and Vegeta are eventually captured and are having their energy strained by the Big Getty Star, it doesn't overload and collapse this time. Instead, it manages to turn both Goku and Vegeta into Meta Super Saiyans like it planned. With the Big Getty Star now having an army of Meta Coolers and Meta Saiyans at its disposal, the other heroes are easily defeated by them. It might even turn some of the other heroes, like Piccolo and Krillin, into members of its army too, which this allows the Big Getty Star to finish draining New Namek, thus powering itself even more. After that, the Big Getty Star would go around the universe, with the Meta Cooler Core still being what decides where it goes. It's likely that the Meta Cooler Core would set their destination for Earth eventually, so it would arrive and start to drain the planet of its energy too. The remaining heroes that didn't go to Namek would have to fight the Meta Coolers, Meta Saiyans, Meta Namekians, and Meta Humans, but they stand no chance. So, the Earth would meet the same fate as New Namek, with it being drained of all its energy. From there, the Big Getty Star would continue to travel the universe, gaining energy from all the planets it latches onto. Eventually, the entire universe would become a barren wasteland as all the planets are drained of their energy. Though, the Big Getty Star doesn't run out of energy, since it wouldn't have to use any energy, as it isn't facing any major threats. So, it would still be around in the universe, and if any planets developed life again, it would drain them of their energy as well. If it did face any threats, it would have an infinite army of Meta Coolers, Meta Saiyans, Meta Namekians, and maybe even Meta Humans on its side. For androids 19 and 20 to win, the easiest way for them to do so is by the change being before they began their attack. In the manga, Dr. Gero didn't know about the Super Saiyan transformation or about future Trunks. When he seen future Trunks, he mentioned how his database had no information on him. I never knew why Dr. Gero didn't know about future Trunks or the Super Saiyan form, since the spy robot scattered the DNA of King Cold and Frieza. they should have witnessed Trunks going Super Saiyan. So, my only guess is that after collecting their DNA, the spy robots left before Trunks appeared. In this timeline, they stick around and gather data on both Goku and Trunks being able to turn into a Super Saiyan, which, with this data, Dr. Gero would make himself an Android 19 far stronger since he would have readings about the power levels of the Super Saiyan. The Android saga would start the same, with Yamcha being the first one to encounter the androids while they were on the Menbo Island. Though since the androids were stronger this time, Android 20 would completely kill Yamcha instead of leaving him near death. The other heroes would notice his key disappearing, so they didn't arrive at where the androids are, so 20 throws Yamcha's corpse to the side. Regardless, Goku had suggested moving to a deserted area to fight, so 20 started to level the city. Goku gets angry then leads him to a deserted area, but since Yamcha was killed, Krillin would be right there with them this time. This also means that they wouldn't learn that the androids can absorb energy through their hands, since Yamcha was killed before he could tell them. Since Gohan has now saved Yajirobe, he takes off towards the other heroes as well. Anyway, by the time the heroes arrive at the deserted location, Goku was starting to become out of breath already, which Tien noticed. But Goku had 20 explain how he knew about them, so he explains how they used spy robots to watch him, since they wanted revenge for him destroying the Red Ribbon Army. When Goku then turns into a Super Saiyan, this doesn't surprise the androids at all, since they already knew about this form. After the fight begins, Goku wouldn't be knocking Android 19 around like in the actual timeline, though Piccolo still would have noticed that Goku was trying to rush this fight, which he points out to Gohan after he arrives. Anyway, without there being a warning of the androids absorbing energy, it would shock all the heroes when 19 absorbs Goku's Kamehameha. Goku would still be pummeled by 19, as he then starts to grip his chest since the heart virus is beginning to take effect. Krillin then tried to give Goku a senzu bean, but it didn't help, as he is still knocked around easily by 19. He is then knocked back into his base form, so 19 pins him down by his neck and starts to absorb his energy. The other heroes then tried to intervene, but 20 got in their way. Piccolo tried attacking 20, but he used his eye lasers to shoot him through the chest, so Piccolo fell to the ground. However, 19 isn't interrupted, as he is kicked upside the head by Vegeta. When Piccolo heard Vegeta was there, he got up, since he was trying to use his defeat as a distraction from Goku. Vegeta then kicks Goku over to Piccolo since he wanted to be the one to kill Goku. Anyway, since Yamcha is dead, Gohan is the one to take Goku back to their house, but before they leave, Piccolo tells Gohan to take some of the medicine too in case it's contagious. Krillin then proposed running away, so this was a similar situation to how the future warriors said they died in the future, though Piccolo convinces them to stick around, so some things already changed from how they were told they would go. 19 then gets permission from 20 to take on Vegeta, but 20 says he gets to take care of Piccolo, Krillin, and Tien then. Anyway, when 19 and Vegeta begin to fight, he still turns into a Super Saiyan, though it wouldn't be 19 that is getting beaten down this time, since 19 was made to be far stronger. He'd be knocking Vegeta around easily. When 19 gets a chance, he would still grab onto Vegeta and begin absorbing his energy. This time, however, Vegeta can't escape from the android's grip, so all his power is absorbed as he reverts to his base form. 19 then blasts and kills Vegeta, since the Saiyan Prince was defenseless now. Vegeta being killed would shock the other heroes, and even though they know they can't do anything, they would try to attack 20 together. Since they stand no chance, Piccolo, Krillin, and Tien would all fall at the hands of the android, after getting their energy absorbed. Around this time, Future Trunks would arrive, but he would meet a similar fate at the hands of 19. Since those heroes are now dead, and their goal was to kill Goku, they would set off and go into Goku's house. Once they arrived, Gohan and Chi-Chi would come out, trying to stop them from getting to Goku. However, they wouldn't stand a chance either and be easily killed. After entering Goku's house, 20 would take the honors for himself and kill Goku. In the manga, 20 never really says what his goals were in case he would have won. He mentions getting revenge for the Red Ribbon Army, so that gave me some ideas on what they could do. Also, even though it's not canon, at one point in Dragon Ball GT, Gero mentioned that his goal is to completely replace humanity with artificial androids and move the world into a new age of society. So, in this timeline, I'm going to make it a mix of the two options. Instead of making all of humanity into androids, he takes the bodies of the heroes and turns them into androids. Speaking of the heroes, he might eventually get into fights with some of the other heroes, like Yajirobe and Master Roshi, but they wouldn't stand a chance either. He might also take out Bulma since he would know about her involvement with the heroes too. Also, he might finish completing 17 and 18 eventually, so that they were loyal to him. If we're including the movies in this, he might correct whatever mistakes were wrong with androids 13, 14, and 15, so that they aren't scrapped. He might still have a version of Android 21 made, since she's based on his late wife, though, of course, she wouldn't have the Majin parts in this timeline. Lastly, Normally, since Android 21 is based off his wife, he would likely activate the android version of his son, Android 16, as well, since he would never have to worry about any harm coming to 16. As for the Red Ribbon Army part, since Magenta would be out there running red pharmaceuticals, Dro would likely team up with him so that they can conquer the world. Anyone that stands in their way would meet an untimely demise at the hands of Dro and his androids. With Dro and Magenta teaming up, when Dr. Hedo is eventually old enough, he might work alongside his grandfather for the Red Ribbon Army. It's also possible that his parents would work there too, since in this timeline, Dro's actions wouldn't have made it difficult for Hedo's parents, mainly since the Red Ribbon Army now rules the world. Regardless, with the resources of the Red Ribbon Army at their disposal, in combination with the intelligence of Dr. Dro and Dr. Hedo, the Android project would continue to improve, so they would be unstoppable. The easiest way for Android 13 to win was after he transformed into his Super Android 13 form. At one point, he was toying around with Goku and using small blasts to injure him. If he would have just used his full power and blasted Goku instead of toying with him, Goku likely would have died, since he was too weak to use the Super Saiyan form at the time. So, in this timeline, Super Android 13 uses his full power and blasts Goku, killing him instantly. From there, an enraged Gohan would try to charge at the android, but he would be killed as well. Without Goku there to use the Spirit Bomb to power himself up, none of the heroes can defeat Android 13, so he would manage to take out Krillin, Piccolo, Vegeta, and Trunks as well. After they are killed, since the supercomputer that was giving Android 13 orders believed itself to be Dr. Gero, it might order the android to find and kill the other heroes too. This could also include the allies of Goku, so that none of them could ever try to stop the android. Since the supercomputer believes that it is Dr. Gero and orders Android 13 around, it might order 13 to take down 17 and 18 as they betrayed Dr. Gero, which it's hard to say if he is stronger than the two while in his super form, but for the sake of this timeline, I'm going to say he is, so he takes them out. He might also take out Imperfect Cell eventually, since he would appear and start attacking the people of the Earth, which wasn't Dr. Gero's goal. Anyway, the supercomputer might eventually order Android 13 to help Magenta achieve his goals, assuming it knows about them, which, that would go like the previous chapter, with the Red Ribbon Army being able to take over the Earth. This time, however, the army wouldn't have multiple androids on its side. Since Dr. Gero isn't around to make androids for Magenta, Android 13 would be the only android they utilize. I don't see Dr. Hedo making androids for them, since in this timeline, Android 13 would be the ultimate android they desired, as he managed to kill Goku, which that's more than enough for them, since none of the Earthlings would be able to challenge the Red Ribbon Army while they have Android 13 on their side. Then as for Android 16, 17, and 18 winning, there's a simple change that would have to be made. While their personalities stay mostly the same, the only difference is that they don't toy around with their targets and kill them instantly instead. So, we start with 18's fight with Vegeta, as it goes the same as usual, up until the other heroes intervene. 17 would be the one to kill Tien, after he got him into a chokehold, as he then breaks his neck. Though he would also kill Piccolo by blasting and vaporizing him. Of course, this would cause Kami to die too, so the Dragon Balls disappear. As for 18, she would be the ones to kill both Vegeta and Trunks. Trunks would be the one to be knocked away first, then after Vegeta is knocked down, she breaks both of his arms. Instead of letting them live, she then blasts and kills them both at the same time. This would leave Krillin as the only one left, but Android 18 would be able to easily kill him too. From there, they would still leave to go and find Goku, but without the heroes alive to warn Goku, they wouldn't sense the androids coming. It was possible Gohan or Yamcha would have noticed the heroes' ki disappearing, so they might move Goku anyway, but without Krillin there to suggest moving him to Kame House, he would be moved to Capsule Corporation instead. The androids would eventually check Kame House, though they couldn't find him there. When finding out their plans, Roshi might try to go against them, but he would be killed too. Next, they would go to check Capsule Corporation, since they would have knowledge about it in their database as well. Yamcha and Gohan would likely try to stop the androids from getting in and finding Goku, but they wouldn't stand a chance, as 17 kills Gohan and 18 kills Yamcha. Even Chi-Chi might try to stop them, but she wouldn't stand a chance either and would be killed. Bulma would be the last person between them and Goku, but she meets her demise too since she can't do anything against them. Now that they are finally able to confront Goku, 17 and 18 will let 16 have the honors of killing him, since that's all he wanted to do. Which, since Goku is still afflicted by the heart virus at this time, he can't put up a fight against 16 and is easily killed. Now, with the heroes dead and their goal of defeating Goku achieved, it's hard to say what they would do. Unlike their future counterparts, they didn't kill any regular people, they just tried pursuing the heroes and Goku. Since they don't follow Dro's orders, getting revenge for the Red Ribbon Army wouldn't matter to them, so they would never help Magenta like Android 13 did in the previous chapter. Assuming Cell still arrives, he would be killed by the androids too. Normally, 16 of us defeated Cell, so 17 and 18 putting Cell together with 16, he would be defeated. Regardless, this doesn't mean the androids would be good, however. 17 and 18 are still rebellious, so they would continue to rob stores and cause havoc in those ways, like they did in the manga. But since they aren't killing people, they are nowhere near as bad as their future counterparts. So, this timeline doesn't really end up being as bad as some of the others. 17 and 18 would still cause havoc across the world by committing minor crimes like stealing, while 16 just tags along. He doesn't really participate in the committing crimes part, as he was much more interested in other things, like nature. So, they might gain a reputation from the crimes they committed, but they are never feared at the same level their future counterparts are. In this timeline, it isn't that the future androids won and killed future Trunks, it's just that Trunks died when he was in the past. So, this timeline could work in any of the previous or future chapters where Trunks died while he's in the past. Regardless, Trunks no longer returning, it's likely the androids would notice he stopped coming eventually. While they wouldn't know what happened to him, they figured he died somehow. Of course, without someone challenging them to fights. They would be bored, but they would continue to kill the humans. At this point, it would be age 785, which the Earth would be mostly barren at this point. In the History of Trunks special, it was mentioned that by age 780, about 2/3 of the Earth's population has been killed, which, if they kept killing at the rate they were, about 92% of the Earth's population would have been killed by age 785. Normally, future seldom appears in age 788, so they continued killing at the rate they were. All the humans would have been killed by the end of age 787. It was likely the rate of them killing humans would have slowed down over time, so they would be far more scattered than they were before. With the remaining humans being in smaller groups, it takes them longer to find them. Regardless, when Future Cell does eventually appear in age 788, there wouldn't be many humans, if any, that he could absorb to gain power. We don't know how strong he was in comparison to the future androids, but without him being able to absorb many people, he wouldn't stand a chance against the androids. So, when they are eventually attacked by Cell, the two would team up on him and vaporize them. After this, assuming all the humans aren't killed yet, the androids would likely draw out killing the rest of them for as long as possible. This way, they could continue to have fun playing their game for years to come. So, the world would still be in a state of anarchy and despair while the androids are wreaking havoc across the planet. After all the humans are dead, it's hard to say what the androids would do, but it's likely they'd find something to entertain themselves in the ruins of the Earth. For both Paragus and Broly to win, the easiest place to start is when Broly attacks Goku in the night. Normally, Goku somehow senses Broly coming even though he was asleep, so he woke up and dodged his attack. So, if Goku didn't wake up in time, Broly would have killed him there, since he was trying to pierce him through the chest. Though when Paragus eventually finds this, he would have to cover this up so that the other heroes didn't find out, which he had no problem covering something like this up, since everything he has been doing on this planet so far has been an elaborate ruse. The next day, Paragus would still be trying to convince Vegeta to stay, as he says they must found the legendary Super Saiyan, though he would also be facing the daunting task of convincing the heroes that Goku's out searching for the legendary Super Saiyan, as he just disappeared last night. This is when Krillin, Trunks, and Gohan bring the slaves they freed back with them, as they identify Broly as the one who attacked their planet. Paragus reveals to them why he brought them there, but since Goku isn't there, Broly doesn't rampage into his legendary Super Saiyan form. Instead, Paragus will order him to fight the heroes, as he turns into his restricted Super Saiyan form, which, even with him not being in his legendary Super Saiyan form, he would be able to defeat the heroes one by one. Vegeta would likely be too scared to attack him as usual, so Gohan, Trunks, and Krillin would fight him. Before he could finish off Gohan, Piccolo would arrive, but he would be beaten down as well. There'd likely still be a moment where Piccolo tries to talk sense into Vegeta, so he ends up attacking Broly, though it's to no avail. With all the heroes beaten down, Broly would easily kill all of them, including Roshi and Oolong, who were also on the planet. From there, Paragus would use the remote control to calm Broly down, which it works this time, since Goku isn't around to anger Broly. In the movie, Paragus mentioned that he wanted to take over the Earth and re-establish Saiyan dominance. So, after the heroes are defeated, Paragus and Broly would head towards Earth together. Once there, they would easily take out the remaining heroes and take over the planet. Paragus would then send some type of broadcast around the world to gather any remaining Saiyans, so that he could re-establish Saiyan dominance like he wanted to. He would also use Broly along with the other Saiyans to conquer planets, so that they could expand to other worlds. Anyway, with him making himself the next Saiyan King, and the eventual Emperor after they conquer more planets, he would remain the Emperor up until he dies, which, this is when Broly would become the next Emperor since he's Paragus' son. But Paragus likely would have something set up that would be able to restrict Broly's bursts of anger after he was gone. So, because of this, Broly wouldn't be too bad of an Emperor since his anger would be under control. Like with the other chapters about a Saiyan becoming a King or Emperor, Broly might have a family of his own eventually. Regardless, no one would be able to challenge Broly for the throne since he is a legendary Super Saiyan. Now, for a chapter where Broly wins without Paragus being involved, we start with his fight against the heroes before Piccolo arrived. Broly easily had many chances to kill the heroes, but he usually just rendered one of them immobile to move to the next one on purpose. So, in this timeline, he decides to kill them before moving on to fighting the next hero. Trunks is the first one to fall at the hands of Broly. Gohan then tried to attack him next, to no avail, so he was killed too. Goku would then attack Broly, but even he is killed by the legendary Super Saiyan. This is when Piccolo arrives, but he wouldn't stand a chance against Broly either, so he is killed too. Without Piccolo being there to talk any sense into Vegeta, he would eventually be found by Broly and killed, since he didn't put up a fight. Even Roshi and Oolong would be killed since they were on that planet too. At some point, it's likely Broly would have noticed Paragus trying to escape on his own, so he would have crushed him in the space pod as per usual. After the heroes and Paragus were killed, Broly would likely leave the planet before the comet Komori destroyed it. Afterwards, he would continue his rampage across the universe, since in the movie, they implied that Broly would eventually destroy the universe in his lifetime, though he also might follow through on his late father's goal of making the Earth his next home planet, but I don't see him restarting the Saiyan race, so that might be the only planet spared from his destruction. Over time, he would eventually destroy the other galaxies in the universe, like how he destroyed the South Galaxy. After they were destroyed, there wouldn't be anyone else for him to fight, since he likely wiped out the inhabitants of Earth, so he would live a solitary and peaceful life on Earth, assuming nothing threw him into fits of rage. This chapter is based around the movie Broly, Second Coming. For Broly to win in it, his fight with Goten and Trunks goes the same, up until the time Gohan normally arrives. Broly was about to finish the two off, but Gohan arrived at the last second and used a blast to save them. This time, Gohan is too late, so Goten and Trunks are both killed by Broly's blast. Though, Gohan's battle with Broly would go the same until the very end, when he was using his Kamehameha to try and push back Broly's Omega Blaster. Without Goten there to help her wish for his father to be there, Gohan couldn't do anything, since he wouldn't know about the Dragon Balls being there. So, Broly's Omega Blaster would overpower Gohan's Kamehameha, thus killing him. Though, this likely destroys the Earth too, since in the movie Goku mentioned something about the planet being destroyed if they didn't stop this blast. Anyway, this means Videl and Krillin are killed when the planet explodes, since they were also on the battlefield, though all the other heroes are killed too. As for Broly, he would likely survive this and drift off into space, which I could see him becoming trapped in ice again, as he floats through the void of space. So, the rest of this timeline is surprisingly peaceful compared to the previous one, as Broly is trapped in ice and can't escape. For Bio Broly to win, the movie would go the same up until he was about to kill Android 18 the first time. Normally, Krillin arrives and saves her at the last second, but this time Bio Broly blasts and kills her right before Krillin arrives. So, when Krillin does arrive, he would see this and attack Bio Broly out of anger. However, he would meet a similar fate too, and would die at the hands of the Saiyan clone. Without Krillin and 18 there to help Goten and Trunks, the two young boys would be beaten down and killed too. Since Trunks never would have blasted the final tank letting out the remaining culture fluid, Bio Broly never turns into his giant form mixed with the culture fluid. However, as for what Bio Broly does from here, it's hard to say. He could either go on a rampage and get into a fight with some of the other heroes, like Vegeta and Piccolo, or he could just destroy the Earth. It's hard to say if he could defeat some of the heroes like Vegeta in a battle, since we never see their powers in comparison to each other. So, for the sake of this timeline of having Bio Broly win, I'm going to say he destroys the Earth while he was rampaging. This would kill all the remaining heroes when the planet explodes, but Bio Broly likely survives the explosion. We don't know if the Bio Warriors need air to survive, but if they don't, Bio Broly wouldn't die in the vacuum of space. He might go on a rampage and attack other planets, but I don't know if he would, since his rampage seemed to be caused by seeing Goten. Anyway, without him rampaging across the universe, he would just float throughout space for eternity. As a brief note, unlike the chapters about Frieza, I'm not going to do multiple chapters for each saga about Cell, since I don't see a way in Perfect Cell could win without absorbing the androids. It'd likely just end up like the timeline where Perfect Cell won. Also, unlike the androids, I'm not going to do a chapter about Future Cell, since the Cell we know did win in the future timeline. Anyway, for Cell to win, we start at the point where Cell was about to kill Vegeta after he had just killed Trunks. Normally, Gohan jumps on top of Vegeta and protects him from the blast, though his arm is injured. In this timeline, Gohan still does try to protect Vegeta, but he's a couple seconds too late to completely protect Vegeta. This means that not only is his arm still injured, but Vegeta is killed as well. From there, Gohan and Cell will still get into a beam struggle with their Kamehamehas. Of course, Goku still helps Gohan out with his, so it becomes the father-son Kamehameha. Their Kamehameha was being pushed back. Without Vegeta there to blast Cell from behind and distract them, Gohan doesn't get the perfect moment to take out Cell. So, even if he did let out all his power for that moment, Cell isn't distracted and can fight back against this. After the moment of Gohan using his full power passes, Cell's Kamehameha would overtake Gohan's, thus killing the young boy. The Cell would then land back on the ground as he turned his attention towards the remaining heroes. Piccolo would try to take on Cell first, but he would be killed too. Then when Krillin tries to fight him, he also falls at the hands of Cell. Tien would step up next, but he meets his demise too. Lastly, Yamcha tries his best to go against Cell. If he doesn't stand a chance either and is killed. Now that the heroes are defeated, this could go one of two ways. Cell would either hunt down the remaining Earthlings and kill them all, then destroy the Earth, or just destroy the Earth from the beginning. Which, he might go around absorbing the remaining Earthlings, since the chase would be fun to him, and he gets a little stronger in the process. He'd then destroy the Earth, and after it is destroyed, he would go on to destroy the universe. Since in the manga he said he wanted to destroy the universe, he would likely go from planet to planet, absorbing their inhabitants and then destroying the planet. He would only do it this way since he would be trying to find some strong fighter to give him a challenge, since he would be bored without anyone to challenge his power. And with him growing stronger from all the people he is absorbing, it's difficult to say how strong he would get or if anyone could give him a challenge. Regardless, the universe would end up becoming a barren wasteland after Cell was done with it. For Bojack to win, I'm planning to do this as a timeline where all his henchmen survive as well. So, we start off with future Trunks was fighting Kogu. He was about to kill Trunks, but he stalled long enough to allow Trunks to turn into a Super Saiyan. If he didn't stall and just try to stab Trunks right away, he would have been killed. Even though Bojack doesn't appear to knock out Trunks, he still shows up with the others, which, Vegeta would sense his power level and that Trunks has disappeared, so he goes to the battlefield. The movie then goes the same as usual, up until Bojack was fighting Piccolo. Since Trunks isn't there to save Piccolo, it would be Vegeta arriving that saves Piccolo. However, he's beaten down by Bojack as usual. From there, the movie would continue as per usual, up until Bojack had Gohan in a stranglehold. Normally, Goku somehow manages to use the instant transmission to leave Otherworld and help Gohan, which I don't think that should have been possible. I know it looked like Goku did the same thing against Cell with the father-son Kamehameha, but Goku's form was more ghostly there, showing how he was talking to Gohan through telepathy instead of physically being there. So, in this timeline, the rules of Otherworld actually ends up preventing Goku from returning to the land of the living. Without Goku saving Gohan, he's then crushed by Bojack in this bear hug and killed. With Gohan now killed, Bojack and his men would finish off the other heroes, as they were all beaten down by this point anyway, which, with the heroes killed, Bojack and his men would wipe out the rest of the humans, since King Kai pointed out how he has spawned a genocide. They would then go around the universe, destroying the inhabitants of other planets like this, but since they are also space pirates, they might conquer planets for their resources, so that they can boost their own wealth. This means that they would start their own pirate empire. It would span across the universe, since no one would be able to stand in the way of Bojack and his men. Before beginning this chapter, in this chapter and the next two, there's a glaring problem with the heroes being able to use the Dragon Balls whenever to revive the heroes that are killed. For the sake of these timelines being wackier and allowing the villains to win, I just ignored the possibility of the heroes using the Dragon Balls. I tried to address this problem by having Goku stop Bulma and the others from using the Dragon Balls in time, but even then, there's nothing to stop them from using them after the heroes are defeated. Anyway, in the timeline where Babidi is still alive to win, it starts right after Boo has awoken. The change would be that Deborah and Boo don't get into a fight against each other. Instead, Deborah and Boo get into a fight against Gohan and Shin, with Boo fighting Gohan and Shin fighting Deborah. When Boo blasts away Gohan like he normally does, Shin wouldn't be able to save him, so Gohan would be killed by this, which leaves Shin to fight Deborah and Boo alone. Of course, Babidi would order the two to kill Shin, so he would be killed too. Things continue as per usual, up until the point Goku was going to stop Bulma and the others from using the Dragon Balls. This time, Goku arrives in time to stop them, so they don't make the first wish of reviving the people killed by Vegeta and Boo. This way, they could hold off on reviving everyone until after Boo is defeated. Regardless, things go the same up until Goku's fight with Boo. Babidi had already started to realize Boo was becoming more independent, so it never made sense to me why he would call Boo things like fat to anger him more. For a timeline for Babidi to win, he realizes that if he keeps pushing Boo around like that, he might be killed, so he doesn't call Boo these names. This means that Babidi isn't killed, so Boo would never go on to do things like make a house and help the blind kid. Instead, they would be going around and killing more humans while waiting the 2 days for the strong fighter Goku promised. From there, the training of Goten and Trunks to fuse goes the same as usual at first. After Goku returns to Otherworld, no one else can take over the training of Goten and Trunks. since Piccolo is still a statue right now. This likely means that they would turn into a failed fusion, but with Piccolo not there to correct them, he would still rush off to fight Boo. When Gotenks first rushed off to fight Boo in the manga, he came back beaten. However, with Babidi alive, he likely wouldn't let Boo allow Gotenks to escape, and they would be weaker since they are a failed fusion this time. So, Boo would kill Gotenks, since this was before they trained in the Hyperbolic Time Chamber to get stronger. Since this would have been the stronger fighter that Goku promised, the heroes wouldn't stand a chance of fighting Boo. Hercule would still have tried to defeat Boo, but it likely ends badly for Hercule since Babidi would have Boo kill him. When the remaining heroes try to challenge Boo, they would be defeated and killed as well. From there, Babidi would have Boo continue to wipe out the inhabitants of the Earth. In the manga, Babidi mentioned that it would only take 5 days for them to wipe out all the inhabitants of Earth. After that, Babidi would be able to use Boo and his other henchmen to take over the universe like he desired. This means that his organization would spread across the entire universe, so more people would fall under his mind control. This chapter will be about Majin Buu, but unlike the last chapter, this chapter will not have Babidi being alive to win. For this timeline to work, it would have to have similar changes to the last chapter. The major change is that Shin doesn't manage to save Gohan, so he is killed. Shin is also killed by Buu before Dabura manages to attack Buu. Things didn't go relatively the same as normal, though Goku had managed to stop the heroes from using the Dragon Balls in time. The only reason this needs to happen is so that any of the heroes aren't revived, since Gohan would be able to train and defeat Buu if he was brought back. Eventually, Goku still has his fight with Buu, but Buu then kills Babidi afterwards. Things from there would go essentially the same, but this time, when Gotenks tries to confront Buu the second time, he still defuses into Goten and Trunks. In this timeline, he doesn't let Goten and Trunks escape, since he believes they are the strong fighters Goku told him about, though without them being fused together, they would easily be killed. After this, he might still make a promise to Hercule not to kill and destroy, but if he keeps his promise is hard to say. In this timeline, so that Buu doesn't split into two, he's the one to attack the people that headshot B instead of Hercule. This would mean they are likely killed, since Buu wouldn't hold back. It then heals B, which causes him to calm down. With the shooters now dead, they couldn't shoot Hercule, so Buu doesn't get angry enough to split into two. Anyway, it's hard to say if Buu would keep his word about not killing, but since he still has his evil part inside, he would eventually get bored and start to destroy again. The other heroes might challenge Buu to try and stop him, but they are killed too. Buu would still wipe out the inhabitants of the Earth. The only difference would be he might not wipe out Hercule and Videl, which, while that could be interesting to see, that would be a sad timeline for them. If that did happen, they'd essentially be stuck dealing with Buu over time. Of course, they could try to train to fight him, but it likely wouldn't work. So, Buu would continue to wreak havoc across the universe, while Hercule and Videl are stuck dealing with him when he is on Earth to visit them. This is kind of a joke chapter again, that wasn't likely to have happened. During Majin Vegeta's fight with Goku, he threatened to kill him, but he likely wouldn't have done so. In this timeline, the change is that he follows through on this threat. Because of Babidi using his powers on Vegeta, when Goku is caught off guard and about to give Vegeta the Senzu Bean, he is then blasted and killed by Vegeta instead of being knocked out. However, this would shock Vegeta himself, since he didn't plan to kill Goku. Though, with his goal surpassing Kakarot seemingly fulfilled, this would leave Vegeta without any goals. This could also be what weakens his pride enough to allow Babidi to gain full control over Vegeta, which, with Babidi in complete control over Vegeta, he wouldn't get into a fight with Buu. Dabura might not get into a fight with Buu either, just like in the earlier chapter about Babidi and Buu winning. Instead, Babidi would use Buu, Vegeta, and Dabura to kill the heroes. This might be easier to do than one might think, since Trunks and Goten might be tricked by Vegeta into believing he's on their side, as he then kills them. Then with Dabura still alive, Piccolo and Krillin are still statues, so there aren't many major heroes that can stand up to them. Without Vegeta going against Buu to cause a distraction, Shin and Gohan would be killed as well. From there, assuming Vegeta and Buu never got into a fight for some reason, it would go like the chapter where Babidi and Buu won, though Vegeta would be along with them for their killing of Earth's inhabitants in the conquest of the universe. Assuming he still has some aspects of his original personality, there might be some internal struggle for the first couple of years since he is taking orders from another again, though without a goal to make him want to fight against his control, he would eventually get used to it. After all, Goku's rivalry with Vegeta drove many of his decisions. Then since Goku is permanently dead in this timeline, there isn't that motivation at all anymore, so the internal struggle would eventually be gone for good, as Vegeta falls completely under Babidi's control. This means that the universe would be taken down by Babidi, Buu, Vegeta, and Dabura. For Janemba to win, the easiest place to start is when Goku was fighting him alone. After he was trapped into the triangular cage that Janemba made from the blood pond, Janemba was about to cut through it and kill Goku. This is normally when Vegeta arrived and saved him from meeting this fate. So, in this timeline, Vegeta is too late, as Goku is then split in half by Janemba. When Vegeta does arrive, his fight with Janemba would basically go the same way, as he wouldn't stand a chance. Even as a Super Saiyan 2, he couldn't do anything against Janemba. Then after he reverts to his base form, he is thrown into a cage of spikes. Without Goku there to catch and save him, he would be impaled on one of the spike balls, killing him. Pikkon would eventually appear to take on Janemba, but their fight would go the same with him getting incapacitated. Since Goku and Vegeta aren't there to fuse and distract Janemba, Pikkon would be killed. Since Janemba defeated these three, King Yama would remain trapped in the check-in station, so the souls of Otherworld would still be free to return to the land of the living. Janemba himself would go to the Earth too. As he begins to wreak havoc on it, he would be able to kill the other heroes that try to stop him, so they wouldn't stand a chance against him. From there, it's hard to tell what he would do, but in the movie Goku mentioned he could have destroyed the universe with his power. He might have done this, but what I think he would do is based on his description from one of the games. In it, King Yama said that Janemba used to be a kingpin of an organized crime syndicate. Now that he is free to roam the world again, he starts up his crime syndicate again. The other previous villains that were released from Hell would either be defeated by Janemba or forced into his crime syndicate. Regardless, no one would be able to stop him and his crime syndicate from taking over the universe. The easiest way Super Buu could win is by a small change when he was fighting Vegito. Normally, Vegito puts up a force field before he is absorbed by Buu, and it works in saving him from being absorbed completely. This time, however, the force field fails for whatever reason, and Vegito is completely absorbed by Buu. Of course, this will cause Buu to turn into Buu-Jito, up until the fusion's time limit expires and they split back into Goku and Vegeta. Anyway, the first thing Buu-Jito would do is destroy the Earth. However, it's also possible he decides to absorb anyone on the Earth he wanted to gain the powers of, so this could include the other heroes to gain their abilities, and some people like Bulma to gain their intelligence. Anyway, in the manga, he was about to destroy the Earth until Goku and Vegeta started to cut the other heroes out of his body. Since that can't happen in this timeline to distract him, he then destroys the Earth, killing everyone on it. When Vegeta's fusion eventually runs out, Buu-Jito would revert into Buuhan. Even then, no one could stand up to him as he begins to travel the universe. He would likely keep invading planets and absorbing people he thought had interesting abilities or high enough strength to make himself stronger. It's hard to tell who all he would run into, but with his strength continuing to grow over time, it's likely he is never defeated. For Kid Buu to win, this timeline starts right as Kid Buu, Goku, and Vegeta were about to fight on the sacred world of the Kai. The change this time is that Kibito Shin remembers to take Hercule with them when they leave the realm. From there, everything in their fight goes essentially the same, up until Goku is using the Spirit Bomb. Without Hercule in the sacred world of the Kai, he can't speak telepathically to the people of Earth. So, they never give Goku their energy. Out of desperation, he must use the Spirit Bomb early, and it doesn't work against Buu. Buu easily sends it flying back at Goku, and even though he tries to fight back against this, he is vaporized by it. Vegeta then might try to attack Buu out of desperation, but he would be killed too. Shin and the others might teleport back as a last-ditch effort to fight Buu, but it would be to no avail. When Kid Buu destroys the sacred world of the Kai, all of them die alongside it, except for Kid Buu. He then goes to travel the universe, heartlessly destroying planets, as he didn't care. For the heroes to not be able to train and win, since they were revived, I'm going to say one of the first planets Kid Buu destroys again is the Earth. Since Kid Buu has a one-track mind that focuses on destruction, he wouldn't land on these planets to fight the heroes. Instead, he just blows them up from space, so the heroes never get another chance to defend themselves. New Namek is also another planet I decided he would destroy early on, so that they can't use their Dragon Balls again. From there, Kid Buu continues to rampage across the universe, destroying whatever planets he wants to, since no one can stop the reckless Majin. In this timeline, for Hirudegarn to win, we start right before Goten and Trunks fused. Hirudegarn had the chance to crush Goku to death, but he just let him go. This time, he crushes him in his hands, killing him. Goten and Trunks then fuse into Gotenks to go Super Saiyan 3 immediately, seemingly defeating Hirudegarn. However, he then transforms into his insect-like form and easily defeats him, as Gotenks then defuses. From there, he fights Gohan and Videl together, but without Goku to distract him, they are killed. Before Hirudegarn can kill off the others, Tapion starts to play the flute, sealing Hirudegarn inside himself. He then tried to get Trunks to kill him with his sword, but he still hesitated, thus allowing Hirudegarn to escape. From there, even though the young boys managed to notice his weakness, he manages to kill Trunks and Goten, since Goku isn't there to defeat him. Hirudegarn would then kill Taffy since he was the nearest fighter. Vegeta might try to fight Hirudegarn, but he is killed too. With no one else there to get in his way currently, he would continue to wreak havoc across the Earth. Though all the heroes that stand in his way would fall to the monster. After the inhabitants of the Earth are completely wiped out and the planet is destroyed, Hirudegarn goes on to devastate the entire universe, since he is a monster that lives to destroy everything. So, Beerus did win this fight against Goku, so in an alternate timeline where he wins, it's going to be a timeline where he destroys the Earth too, for Beerus to win. This timeline begins at the scene where he was about to destroy Vegeta. Normally, Bulma walks up and slaps Beerus, and he slaps her back, thus enraging Vegeta to attack him. Instead, Bulma is too late, as Beerus destroys Vegeta before she could slap him. Of course, she still might slap the God of Destruction after this, but she would still be slapped in return. Beerus might still give the Earth one last chance to save itself by playing rock, paper, scissors against Oolong, but he loses to Beerus. Though before he can destroy the Earth, Goku arrives and asks Beerus for one last chance. They still gather the Dragon Balls as usual and summon Shenron, and they ask him how to bring about the Super Saiyan God. He tells them how to do the ritual, as he then says farewell and leaves. They still make the mistake of thinking only 4 Saiyans need to pour their heart into one, but since Vegeta was erased, Videl reveals that she is pregnant earlier. Though this ritual fails, so Whis still points out that they are down 1 Saiyan. Since Vegeta isn't there to mention his brother, they couldn't learn about Tarble. Even if Bulma or Trunks knew about Tarble, they had no idea where he is and if he's pure-hearted. They also have no idea about Broly, so he is off the table as well. As Beerus was getting ready to destroy the Earth, the heroes would still try to fight him anyway, even though it was to no avail. After all of them, including Goku, are defeated again, he rises into the sky above the planet. He has Whis come with him, as he then destroys the Earth and everyone on the planet alongside it. From there, Beerus likely gives up on his dream of fighting a Super Saiyan God and just assumes that the Oracle Fish's prophecies are false. This timeline doesn't really end that badly, as the universe would just be run how it always was under Beerus' reign as the God of Destruction. In between his long naps, he would destroy planets before going back to napping. With the Earth and heroes destroyed, most of the later sagas in Dragon Ball Super never happened. Even if any of them did impose an actual threat to the universe, whenever Beerus wakes up from his next nap, he would destroy them easily, since we still haven't seen his full power. So, ironically enough, the universe ends up being slightly more peaceful without the heroes around, since Beerus would still do his job between his naps. The easiest way for Golden Frieza to win doesn't involve Frieza changing his actions. Instead, it involves Beerus keeping his word about something. He told Frieza that he wasn't going to take sides in Frieza's revenge, since he's the God of Destruction, but he then chose a side when he and Whis created a barrier to protect the nearby heroes alongside themselves. So, in this timeline, when Frieza destroys the Earth, Beerus follows through on his word and just has Whis make a barrier around themselves. This means that all the heroes are wiped out along with the Earth. In the depths of space, Frieza would be floating there, but he would have been victorious, since Frieza has gotten stronger and was willing to destroy the planet in an instant while he was still on it. It's likely he knew he wouldn't get too injured from it. Though before Frieza can go leave, Beerus would approach the Tyrant. In the Golden Frieza saga, he was trying to be fearful of Beerus to some extent. So, this timeline is based around the idea of Frieza remaining fearful of Beerus instead of trying to overthrow him to become the next God of Destruction. The meeting with Beerus might be something along the lines of, "You just destroyed our favorite snack bar, so you're going to provide us with delicious food now, or you're destroyed." Of course, Frieza wouldn't have any choice but to comply. He has just spent years in hell, and he doesn't want to be destroyed, as that would be a fate worse than death. So, after agreeing to Beerus' demands, he flies off towards one of the few remaining planets that stayed loyal to the Frieza Force. Since he destroyed his ship alongside the Earth, he must fly there by himself, so it would take a while. Regardless, once he arrives, he uses a healing chamber, since he was still weakened from the fight with the heroes. After he is healed, he goes on to restart his empire. It would take a while to rebuild his empire, since his current state is a far cry from what it used to be. Though throughout the process of him rebuilding it, whenever Beerus wakes up from his naps, he would have surprise visits with Frieza to get the delicious food he promised. Thankfully for Frieza, the more his empire grows, the more access he has to the food of other planets. Also, since Beerus is still a lazy god, he might have Frieza be the one to destroy planets for him while he's asleep like he did all those years ago. Anyway, while Frieza could try to train more and challenge Beerus, I'm going to say he's too fearful of getting destroyed to do so. Frieza's empire would reach its former glory eventually, and from there it would continue to expand. He would eventually become the emperor of the universe like he desired to be, though he would always be living under the threat of destruction, since one bad meal he gives to Beerus could seal his fate. For Goku Black to win, the change would happen right before future Trunks went to the past the first time to get the heroes his help. This time, he notices the time machine a little bit sooner, so when he fires the Black Kamehameha, it hits the time machine. This would destroy the time machine along with killing Trunks, so the heroes would never find out about Goku Black. Regardless, he and Zamasu would now be able to follow through on their Zero Mortals plan unabated. They might take out future Mai first, just since she was one of the leaders of Earth's resistance, and so that there isn't the risk of anyone traveling into the past somehow. Regardless, they might face later threats across Universe 7, before they can move on to the other universes. Though because of Goku Black's potential to get stronger after being injured, in combination with Zamasu having immortality, they would be a tough duo to beat, even without the heroes' motivation. Goku Black might still unlock the Super Saiyan Rose form eventually, since he would have known about Super Saiyan forms and would try to achieve one for himself. Obviously, Xeno is a potential issue for them since they would have killed the gods. However, in the future timeline, the gods were killed when the Kais were killed, but future Xeno never did anything about this. We don't know why he didn't, but assuming he still does nothing, Zamasu and Goku Black would be able to wipe out all the mortals across the universe eventually, though they might hold off on fighting Universe 11 until last, because of the rumor about a fighter that rivals the gods of destruction. This way, Goku Black could potentially get strong enough to fight this fighter. It's hard to say if they could win, but of course, for the sake of this timeline, they managed to kill Jiren as well. From there, all the mortals across the 12 universes would eventually be wiped out. After that, it's hard to say what Goku Black and Zamasu would do, since they achieved their goals of wiping out all the mortals. Zamasu did say something about wanting to get rid of the gods, so this might have included Xeno. However, they would likely have to fuse into merge Zamasu to be able to do this if they haven't already. With the power and immortality of Zamasu along with the potential of Goku Black in one body, he might have been able to defeat Xeno eventually. The Grand Priest would also be a threat that could stand in their way. It's hard to say if he could ever defeat them, but if he somehow managed to do so, he might remake the multiverse to fit with his ideals. Even with his dislike of mortals, maybe he tries to make the multiverse perfect in his eyes by creating life that adheres to his ideals. Any life that is intolerable to him would be wiped out, though it's hard to say if he would do this, since he has a major dislike of mortals. Then again, if he somehow manages to make mortals that fit his standards, he will likely keep them around. Thankfully for him, he has all eternity to develop the perfect life forms. Unlike Xeno, he would be a more involved deity, but his involvement would be on the other side of the spectrum. Instead of being barely involved like Xeno, he would be overly involved, and any little thing that goes against his ideals of justice would be erased. Because of this, it could take many millennia to make the multiverse in a way that fits his ideals. For Hit to win, it's quite easy, as all he would have needed to do was knock Monaka out of the ring. With Monaka knocked out of the ring, this makes Team Universe 6 the winner, but they are still interrupted by the arrival of Xeno. However, the meeting between Goku and Xeno would likely still go the same way. Regardless, after Xeno leaves and they summon Super Shenron, they would wish for the two Earths to be switched. This now means that Goku, Vegeta, and the other heroes are a part of Universe 6. As for what happens now that they live in Universe 6, it isn't anything too crazy. Goku and Vegeta likely would have seen Champa and Vados come to Earth at times for the food, but their request to train would be shot down. Champa is a lazy god, and they have no connection to these mortals like Beerus and Whis did. So, since they have no relationship with the gods of this universe, their training with the gods would end there. Because of this, they obviously never learn techniques like Ultra Instinct or Ultra Ego. Instead, they might just meet up with the other Saiyans, like Cabba, Caulifla, and Kale, and help train them. Then as for something going on in Universe 7, Goku Black and Zamasu destroy the future. Since when Trunks travels to the past, I don't see his time machine jumping universes to take him to the Earth he knows. He would be on a desolate Earth, without any of the heroes there to help him. When Goku Black pursues him into the past, he kills Trunks, though he is then dragged into the future and gets to finish his Zero Mortals plan. Also, there would be no Tournament of Power, since without Goku having a relationship with the gods of Universe 6, he wouldn't get the chance to remind Xeno about the tournament. Without the heroes being in Universe 7, their mortal level goes down, especially since Beerus would still be a lazy god, so he wouldn't be trying to improve the universe just because the heroes are gone. The only thing he might do is get Shin to terraform the Earth, so that down the road they could potentially get good food from the inhabitants of Earth again. Then as for Universe 6, their mortal level likely goes up, since the Saiyan race would grow in power with the help of the heroes. Knowing Goku, he might challenge people like Hit to fight again, so they become something like rivals to one another. Regardless, life is generally peaceful for the heroes, so they likely wouldn't face any major threats like they would have in Universe 7. About the only later villain saga that would happen would be the superhero movie, but I don't see it going any differently than it did. The only difference would be that instead of Goku and Vegeta being off training with the gods, they're off training with the Saiyans. It would have been quite easy for Djinn to win in the Tournament of Power. A good starting point is before 17's apparent sacrifice, as Djinn was fighting against Frieza. When he knocks Frieza away this time, he's eliminated instead of just falling unconscious and staying in the ring as he normally did. The rest of the tournament goes the same up until the point that Djinn was about to eliminate Goku after he dropped out of his Mastered Ultra Instinct form. Frieza normally manages to rescue Goku from being eliminated, but that obviously couldn't happen in this timeline. This leaves Djinn as the only fighter left in the arena, or so he thinks, as Android 17 is still alive and reveals himself. However, he doesn't stand a chance against Djinn alone, so he's eliminated, and Universe 7 is then erased. The Grand Priest and the Xenos would then ask Djinn about his wish. Of course, he tries to wish for his master, Djinn, to be revived. However, since he chose a selfish wish, this disappoints the Xenos. They then erase Djinn, Universe 11, and the 4 exempt universes, since instead of trying to work on improving the multiverse they had, they decided it was better to start over from scratch. So, while the reality we knew would cease to exist, reality would begin again as the Xenos and the Grand Priest remake the multiverse. For Broly to win. This timeline begins with Goku and Vegeta flying past Frieza to try and distract Broly. This time, however, Broly doesn't get distracted by Frieza and continues to focus on the two Saiyans. So, he would be pulling them into the ground, since Goku wouldn't get a chance to concentrate long enough to teleport away from the battlefield. It's also likely that Broly would still progress into his legendary Super Saiyan form like he did in the fight with Gogeta. When this happens, Goku and Vegeta don't stand a chance, so it wouldn't take much for Broly to be able to kill them. After they are killed, Broly would still be rampaging, but it's likely he eventually calms down. Though it might take something like Chi-Lai and Lemmo talking to him to snap him out of his rampage. Briefly off topic, Piccolo would have been watching the battle unfold, so he would have noticed that Goku and Vegeta were dead, so he might gather the other heroes to try and come up with a plan. Regardless, since Broly beat the two, he would still be under Frieza's rule. With the Saiyans defeated, Frieza would then summon Shenron and make his wish to be 5 centimeters taller. After that, Frieza and his men, along with Broly, would leave the Earth. It is possible that he would destroy the Earth from outer space before he leaves. This way, all the remaining heroes are killed alongside the Earth when it explodes. Of course, Beerus and Whis were on the Earth, but they would be able to survive the explosion with the barrier. Now, Whis could use the ability to rewind time, but for the sake of this timeline, he doesn't. More than 3 minutes have passed since Vegeta and Goku died, and the gods are supposed to stay neutral in the affairs of mortals. Something to mention is that Beerus was watching Bulma at the time the Earth was destroyed, so when Beerus used the barrier to escape the exploding planet, she might have survived as well. As for what happens with her after that, I'll leave it up to your interpretation, though I also might make a continuation to these timelines later to explore what I think would happen next. Regardless, back with Frieza, it's likely that Beerus would meet up with him at some point, since he was angry about the Tyrant destroying the planet while he was on it. Normally, he would just destroy Frieza and that would be the end of it, but for the sake of this timeline, I'm going to say Frieza does some kind of grandiose apology, so Beerus doesn't destroy him. It'd probably be something like a feast with foods from around the universe. Anyway, Frieza would then work on rebuilding and expanding his empire once more. This time, however, he has Broly on his side, so he could be useful in doing the dirty work of fighting any threats they might face, though Frieza also likely continues to train, just in the case that Broly ever tries to turn against Frieza, even though I don't see Broly doing that. So, since I see Broly as being loyal to Frieza, the Tyrant might eventually help him train so he gets better control of his power. Regardless, Frieza's empire would eventually expand and encompass all corners of the universe, since with the power of Broly on his side, he is hard to be stopped. The easiest way for Moro to win is during his first fight with Goku and Vegeta. This was before his magic was restored, as he then blasted both Goku and Vegeta. After picking them up, he drained the remaining energy from the Saiyans. Normally, they just barely survive, but they fall unconscious for 3 days. In this timeline, he completely absorbs their energy, so they are killed. But this also causes Moro to gain a more youthful appearance. Regardless, Moro still would have been attacking the Namekian villages and stealing their Dragon Balls. Even with Goku and Vegeta dead, Beerus would still get in his way as he was on the way to get the last Dragon Ball. Their fight goes essentially the same, with Beerus trapping Moro in a net while the Galactic Patrol brings Boo there. Moro then breaks free from the net and gets into a fight with Boo, though they are still interrupted by Cranberry summoning Kurunga, as he uses the first wish to heal himself. Moro then has Cranberry use his second wish to restore his magical powers, and after being threatened, he complies. Then as he was going to make his third wish, Moro arrives and kills him, as he then uses the third wish to release all the prisoners of the Galactic Patrol. Something to mention has to do with the Earth's Dragon Balls. It hasn't been a year since the fight against Broly, so the Earth's Dragon Balls are still inactive. Another thing to mention is whether Beerus would get involved or not, which I don't think he would at this time. In the manga, he was excited to learn about new Namek's death, since he didn't have to lift a finger to do his job, as someone else always arrives in Universe 7 to do it for him. So, from there, things generally go the same, but since Goku and Vegeta are dead, the Grand Supreme Kai uses Boo's body and ends up attacking Moro alone. Though when Beerus intervenes, without Goku and Vegeta there to come up with the plan of sending Moro back to New Namek, Beerus might have to reveal his angel form earlier to fight Moro, that when he begins to use his full power, he would disappear right before he could finish off Moro. At this point, Moro didn't take 73's ability to take the power of others, so Beerus wouldn't be able to exploit the weakness of cracking the orb on his forehead. With Beerus now gone, Moro would finish off the Grand Supreme Kai with a blast. Meanwhile, the Galactic Patrol prisoners would still meet up with Moro, since Goku and Vegeta aren't there to get in his way. Before they leave, he would use his powers to completely drain New Namek of its energy, causing the planet to die. Regardless, they then began to do their usual of going from planet to planet, with the prisoners taking all the valuables they could from the planet. Afterwards, Moro would completely drain the planet of its energy, which causes it to die. Things generally go the same, up until 73 and the others were fighting on Earth. Since Goku and Vegeta are dead, Moro would never hear about them training. This doesn't give him the idea to wait for longer so he can get more energy, so he has them kill the heroes. So, the heroes would be killed, and Moro would make his way to Earth. Of course, this means that the planet would be drained of its energy after he arrives, so the Earth dies. After this, he and the other prisoners would continue to travel the universe. Anytime they find a suitable planet for Moro to take the energy from, they repeat the process of taking all its valuables and then letting Moro take the planet's energy, thus killing the planet. Moro's goal was to create the ideal universe where he can absorb planets as he wishes to, so he would have achieved this goal. However, I can see it going one of two ways after this. Either Beerus is forced to destroy him because he killed too many planets, or he makes Moro an official agent of destruction. This way, Moro can still eat planets, and Beerus' work is still done, but they don't have to worry about Moro destroying too many planets. Since Beerus tends to be a lazy god, and for the sake of Moro staying alive for this timeline, he's made an official agent of destruction. Of course, he can no longer willy-nilly destroy planets like he was, but he still gets to eat planets over time. Though if he ever goes against Beerus, it's hard to say if he would win, but it likely doesn't end well for him if he tries to. For Granola to win, this timeline begins with Goku's first fight against Granola. For some reason, instead of finishing off Goku like he planned to, he listened to Vegeta and began to fight him instead. So, in this timeline, Granola doesn't listen to Vegeta and finishes off Goku instead. With Goku dead, Vegeta's fight with Granola would go mostly the same. The only major difference is that Vegeta wouldn't try to talk Granola into seeing reason, since he killed Goku. Normally, when Vegeta was about to be finished off, Goku arrived and saved them. Of course, that can't happen here, so Vegeta is killed too. Regardless, after the Saiyans are dead, Granola would report back to the Heaters. At this point, they could either tell Granola where Frieza is, or they could send Granola to finish off the other heroes, by telling them they're part of Frieza's army. Even though the Earth Dragon Balls are inert at this time, since Mackie couldn't find them on the radar, it would be better safe than sorry to risk the heroes getting revived. So, Elect tells Granola that while they are looking for Frieza's location, he should go take out the Earthlings, as they are part of the Frieza Force, which none of the heroes would stand a chance, so they would all be killed by Granola. After telling Elect of his success, it's hard to tell when he will be told about Frieza's location, since Elect wanted to wait a little longer before sending him after Frieza. Eventually, when he does send Granola after the Tyrant, it would be a long and drawn out fight, but since Frieza didn't train in the Hyperbolic Time Chamber, he would be killed by Granola. This is where the timeline can split into either Granola winning over the Heaters or the Heaters winning over Granola. Granola would want to dismantle Frieza's empire, while the Heaters wanted to take it over for themselves. So, in this timeline, when the two forces eventually go against each other, Granola comes out on top. I'm going to say that in this timeline, he secretly found out about the Heaters' plan to kill him and take over the Frieza Force. Before they could do this, however, he catches them off guard at some point and kills them. But since Gas is the strongest, he would be killed first, though Gas also didn't make his wish to be the strongest in the universe in this timeline. Regardless, with the Heaters now dead, Granola would go on to dismantle the remnants of Frieza's empire like he wanted to. From there, he would return to planet Cereal and go back to living with Monito. Since his desire for revenge was fulfilled, he would live the rest of his life peacefully on planet Cereal, though he also might still do bounties to continue to earn money to provide for himself and Monito. However, since he made the wish to be the strongest in the universe before, his life ends 3 years after the day he made that wish. In the timeline about the healers winning, it would start with the branching point I mentioned in the last chapter. Instead of Granola finding out about the healers' plan, he never learns about it. Anyway, since they know about Granola's lifespan having been shortened, they hold off on beginning their plans of taking over Frieza's old empire right away. Instead, they bide their time and wait for Granola to die, so that they don't have to fight him. Once he dies, they would then take over the remnants of Frieza's empire, since it likely continued even though Frieza was killed again. After all, his empire persisted after he died the first and second time, so I don't see why it wouldn't the third time. Regardless, with the healers taking over the remnants of Frieza's empire, it would open new business opportunities for them. They would have a better intel network at their disposal to be able to provide their services across the universe, which they would still be involved in giving bounties out to people. But they would also still be involved in the planet broker business, like how they sold planet cereal to the Shugarians. Without the heroes in their way, they wouldn't be stopped from expanding their empire around the universe, which it would likely grow to be extremely profitable too, since the entire universe's resources would be within their grasp. For Magenta to win, this timeline begins during Gamma 2's fight with Piccolo. Instead of just assuming that he killed Piccolo, he stays behind to see if Piccolo was dead, which he would see he wasn't, so he would then finish off the Namekian. Without Piccolo's involvement, no one would know what was going on, until it was time for him to pick up Pan. Since he never shown up, and they couldn't get a hold of Piccolo, they might have noticed that something is amiss. Regardless, Magenta still would have a soldier try to kidnap Pan, but that would fail, so they might send the Gammas to do it, which Pan wouldn't stand a chance in resisting them. From there, Gohan would likely still be brought to the base to try and rescue Pan, but since he would be fighting alone, when he starts to use his ultimate form, both Gammas take him on. He wouldn't stand a chance against the two of them and would be killed as well. Of course, Magenta would then send the Gammas to take on and kill the other heroes. This would include Goku and Vegeta when they arrive on Earth. Now, it's hard to say if the Gammas could beat Goku and Vegeta, but it's possible they could, since Gohan himself said that even if they were there, they might not have been able to win. Piccolo also made a comment in the manga about their power being at least equal to Goku and Vegeta's. Regardless, after all the heroes and their allies were killed, Magenta would be able to rebuild the Red Ribbon Army like he wanted to. He would also likely keep Dr. Hedo and his androids on his side, though, when it comes to Pan, they wouldn't be able to have her killed, as the Gammas would then turn against them. So, Pan might be raised by the new Red Ribbon Army and eventually become part of it. Regardless, with the Gammas on his side, he would be able to conquer the world like he had wanted to. However, he would also have to continue playing along with the act that they're heroes, so that the Gammas and Dr. Hedo stay on his side. Since it was the Gammas that won, they never have a reason to awaken Cell Max. So, Magenta eventually becomes the ruler of the world, as no one would be able to stop the Red Ribbon Army. This chapter is based on Dr. Hedo winning, which this time would go basically the same as the previous chapter. In the movie, he mentioned how he knew he was being used, but he didn't do anything about it. In this timeline, after Magenta wins, Dr. Hedo eventually decides to go against Magenta. He might do this since he realizes that his actions are going against his ideals of being a superhero. Regardless, Magenta wouldn't be able to stop the Gammas or Dr. Hedo when they tried to overthrow him, so they would be able to defeat him before he could awaken Cell Max. As for what Dr. Hedo would do after taking control of the Red Ribbon Army, it isn't likely he would want to take over the world. Instead, he would just continue his android project to continue to make the ultimate androids. He would also use his androids to rid the world of any evil he's seen, to keep out his ideals of being a superhero. So, while he didn't want to be the ruler of the world, people might end up fearing him, since he was using his androids to defeat anyone that went against his ideals. Regardless, he would stay in power for the rest of his life since no one could defeat his androids. In the timeline where Cell Max wins, the change for how he could win is a simple but funny one. If both Krillin and Piccolo forgot about his gigantification technique, he would never have been able to stop himself from being crushed to death. So, Piccolo is crushed to death, which obviously this would anger Gohan more. Though with Piccolo dead, Gohan would obviously not know about the Senzu Bean in Piccolo's belt. So, even though he would still unlock his beast form, since he isn't at his full power, his attack likely wouldn't work. This means that Cell Max's energy ball would be able to hit Gohan and would kill him. It would also probably go further than that, as it would destroy the planet too. Assuming Cell Max is like Cell, he would be able to survive this explosion and survive in space, which he is a mindless creature that was only seen trying to destroy whatever or whoever he saw. So, he might begin a rampage around the universe as he mindlessly destroys things. Even if Goku and Vegeta end up confronting him on a planet, they would likely lose too. I'm only basing that on Gohan's quote about how even if they were there, they likely would have lost as well. Regardless, Cell Max would continue his rampage of mindless destruction up until he was either stopped somehow or there was nothing left to destroy.